Chapter 1939. 1939 was injured. I've finally recovered some of my strength, but we're still a little too young. In the sky above the Amazon rainforest, Huar looked at her own body and was slightly dissatisfied. Her current appearance, which was that of a 16 or 17-year-old little girl, made her slightly unhappy. She was once a big girl. At least it's much better than a child's body. Kair did not care too much and her face was full of smiles. Wang Wang. At this moment, the two star grass on the divine kingdom moved slightly and flew towards them. Star, Chin Chin, looks like your strength has increased a lot. Huar looked at the two star grass and smiled as she reached out to take one. Bzz. The two star grass trembled. They were dark green and filled with powerful life force. This time, they ignited the divine fire and improved the two star grass. Now, 2 stars could kill 2 divine fire god realm experts. Someone is coming. Suddenly, Kair looked to the side warily. With a wave of her arm, the divine kingdom appeared behind them. I didn't expect that 2 beauties would light the divine fire here and become gods. A rough voice was heard. Then, 3 figures covered in flames appeared in their line of sight. The leader was a middle-aged man. Flames were rising above his head, and his body was filled with a destructive aura. The throne of the Fire God Palace? Kair glanced at the 3 God Realm experts of the Fire God Palace who had suddenly appeared. She squinted her eyes and said indifferently, "Ladies, you have sharp eyes. I'm Sui Xinhua of the Fire God Palace. Even in the Endless Star area, I'm a big force. I just sense that you 2 ladies have lit the divine fire. I wonder if you 2 ladies are interested in joining us. We will create a divine seat for you 2 ladies in the palace." Sui Xinhua looked at Huar and Kair, his eyes sparkling. The 2 figures beside him also sized up Huar and Kair. If they remembered correctly, all the gods who had lit up the divine fire recently had no female gods, and they were such young and beautiful goddesses. The 2 girls in front of them looked to be 16 or 17 years old. Their bodies were spotlessly clean, and they were perfect goddesses. Even they couldn't help but take a few more glances at them. They even thought that they would eventually become god lovers with them in the future. I'm sorry, we're not interested in joining." Huar felt their gazes and snorted lightly as she said coldly. This group of stinky men. Their gazes were all so wretched. Hee, 2 beauties, I don't know if you have understood the recent situation on Earth. With the 2 of you having just ignited the divine fire, it's not very safe. Our Fire God Palace's strength is enough to protect the 2 of you and allow you to completely return to your former peak. Sui Xinhua frowned slightly and then continued with a smile. No need. Kair coldly shook her head and directly refused. Kair's refusal once again caused the smiles on the faces of the Fire God Palace's 3 people to completely disappear. 2 beauties, why don't you go to our Fire God Palace and take a look before making a decision? Sui Xinhua was slightly unwilling to accept this and continued to invite them. There's no need. Sister, let's go. Huar glanced at them and rejected them with slight disdain. Boss, look at their divine kingdom. At this moment, the middle-aged man beside Sui Xinhua suddenly looked at the divine kingdom behind Huar and Kair and said with a face full of surprise, "Oh." Sui Xinhua was slightly stunned. He looked over and then widened his eyes. A divine kingdom made of divine wood, this. Sui Xinhua's expression changed slightly as he sensed the massive aura coming from the wood elemental divine kingdom behind them. A hint of greed flashed in his eyes as he exchanged glances with the 2 people beside him. Whoosh. They moved and instantly appeared around Huar and surrounded her. What are you doing? When Kair saw their expressions, a cold expression appeared in her eyes. I want to invite the 2 beauties to sit in our Fire God Palace. Sui Xinhua narrowed his eyes and said to them, I think you are courting death. Huar looked at the 3 of them surrounding them. She, who had a bad temper, stared at them with a cold expression and shouted loudly. Hee hee, two beauties, Earth is dangerous. I advise you to join our fire god palace or else. The middle-aged man on the right laughed as he stared at Huar and Kair, his eyes flashing with lust and greed. The other two middle-aged men laughed. They looked at the divine kingdom built by the divine tree behind them, their eyes burning with passion. Building a divine kingdom with the divine tree was such a luxury. In the universe, the strong ruled. It was normal to kill and steal. When they sensed the vastness of the divine kingdom, they made a decision in their hearts. Facing the two gods who had just lit the divine fire, even if they were once fallen gods, with their strength, they could easily take them down. Just nice, we'll use you to test our strength. Kair looked at the greed in their eyes, and a trace of killing intent appeared in her eyes. She and Huar looked at each other. 1. The two of them did not hesitate at all. Although they were once the little princesses of their families, after experiencing that great battle, they also knew the cruelty of the universe. They were not afraid of fighting and killing. 1. Just as they were about to make a move, with a thought, the star grass above their heads trembled slightly, and as if it was tearing through the void, it attacked the two middle-aged men from the fire god palace. Pooh. The two gods from the fire god palace were slightly startled when the star grass appeared in front of them. Oh no, I was careless. Their expressions changed drastically, and they instantly felt their breathing stop. They had already ignited 2 wisps of divine fire. In their opinion, there was no need to use all of their strength when facing 2 girls who had just ignited divine fire. Not to mention that there was a god beside them who had ignited 3 wisps of divine fire. However, it was already too late. Pooh. 2 piercing sounds rang out, and they felt the life force in their bodies instantly dissipate. Peng. In an instant, their eyes widened, and their corpses directly fell downwards. What? How is this possible? You. At this moment, Sui Xinhua's expression changed drastically, and his eyes slowly turned blood red. A violent power of fire emanated from his body, and the terrifying pressure caused the surrounding trees to quickly wither. I want you all to die. An incomparably violent voice came out of his mouth, and the position of God of the 3 wisps of divine fire was revealed without a doubt. Not good. Huar and Kair felt its powerful might, and their expressions changed slightly. Tree world. The 2 of them waved their arms, and countless towering trees directly attacked Suishin fire. Chapter 1940. 1940 was injured. Boom. 2 fellows who have just ignited the divine fire dare to kill my people and the people of our fire god palace. I will capture you and make you slaves. Violent flames rose up in the Amazon rainforest. The destructive attack directly caused all the trees that were attacking the fire god palace to explode. Whoosh! At this moment, 2 star grass attacked him at a terrifying speed. Roar, they want to ambush me. Sui Xinhua looked at the star grass in front of him, his eyes bloodshot. They had never imagined that these 2 women, who had just ignited their divine flames, would possess such a terrifying weapon. The 2 strange grass instantly killed 2 gods. Sui Xinhua's expression was incomparably berserk. He extended his arm, and a flame shield appeared in his hand, striking directly at the stellar grass. The enormous collision caused the 2 stellar grass to curl up and fly backwards. 1. They let out a mournful cry and returned to Huar's head. Not good, sister. We aren't his match. Huar's expression changed drastically as she said to Kair in panic. Mu Zhang. Kair gritted her teeth as the trees within a 1,000-kilometer radius flew up and smashed towards the flame. Go! The 2 looked at each other and quickly entered the divine kingdom, directly entering the underground. Don't even think about escaping. A violent roar sounded. The moment they entered the underground, a fireball that was like a meteorite landed on them. Pooh. Huar, who was in the kingdom of God, spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face turned pale. Yeah, just you wait. I'll beat you to death in the future. Huar roared angrily. Control the kingdom of God and avoid his pursuit. Kair said quickly. Yes, sister. Hua became serious and quickly controlled the kingdom of God to escape into the distance. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment from the sky, sounds of extremely violent attacks came from above. Hua and Kair's faces trembled as they continuously spat out blood. Bzzz. Bzzz. The entire kingdom of God released a powerful life force to resist the burning flames. Damn it, you two little girls, get out here. In the sky, Suixinhuo roared furiously. His attacks were like meteors falling from the sky. At this moment, he could no longer sense Hua Kair's aura. This made him extremely furious. Those two girls are so powerful. They actually ambushed and killed two godly state experts of the Fire God Palace in an instant. That expert of the Fire God Palace has already ignited 3 wisps of divine fire. He's much stronger than us. At this moment, thousands of kilometers away, 2 young gods were looking at this scene with faces full of shock. However, those 2 goddesses who have just ignited the divine fire are so beautiful. This is a true goddess. If I had such a divine companion, how many would it be? A young god's eyes flickered as he spoke. Just think about it. The other party's strength is much stronger than yours. The others smiled faintly and said, Oh. Suddenly, the 2 young gods who were conversing moved slightly and hurriedly looked forward. In their line of sight, the 2 women who had fought with the Fire God Palace were 4,000 to 5,000 meters in front of them. The 2 of them were obviously injured. A hero saving a damsel in distress. They looked at each other and a burning look flashed across their eyes. Their hearts moved, and they immediately flew toward Hua Kair. Who is it? Hua Kair sensed a strange aura, and she immediately looked back cautiously. Don't worry, beautiful ladies. We mean no harm. I'm Shui Xiaoyuan. I'm Chang Yangxia. A burning look flashed across Shui Xiaoyuan's and Chang Yangxia's eyes. They cupped their hands and showed a smile that they thought was kind. We were attracted by the battle here. With our strength, we are no match for the 2 ladies. Besides, we are not from the Fire God Palace. The 2 of them said with a smile. Hua and Kair glanced at them warily. Their eyes were still cold. Ladies, why don't I bring you 2 to a safe place to recover? It's not too safe around here. Shui Xiaoyuan saw their wary expressions and said with a smile. Don't even think about escaping. At this moment, a violent and majestic roar suddenly came from behind, causing Hua Kair's expression to change slightly. All right. The 2 of them looked at each other and immediately nodded. They could sense the other party's strength. With the power of the Stargrass, they were completely capable of killing the other party. They were not afraid that the other party would have any ill intentions. All right, then 2 ladies, let's go to our divine mountain and hide for a while. Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia's eyes lit up with joy. With a wave of their arms, the 4 of them instantly disappeared. Eastern True Spirit Sect. When the 2 of them brought them to the east, Hua and Kair looked at each other and at the divine mountain in front of them. True Spirit Sect is a small faction that I've casually established. This mountain belongs to the divine mountain. Whether it's cultivation or recovery, it's more than 10 times faster than the outside world. The 2 beauties can rest in peace here. We've set up a formation here. Ordinary gods can't break in. Shui Xiaoyuan said with a smile. Thank you. We need to recover from our injuries now. Kair said with a faint nod. Come, 2 ladies. You can cultivate on the peak of the mountain. Shui Xiaoyuan smiled and brought them to the peak of the mountain. Thank you. I hope that you will not disturb us for the time being. We will repay you when we recover. Kair responded to them. No need, no need. You can tell us directly if you need anything. Shui Xiaoyuan shook his head with a smile. Hua and Kair looked at each other and sat cross-legged on the peak of the mountain. A green light barrier enveloped them. Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia looked at each other and went straight to one of the peaks of the divine mountain. Tsk. Can we be considered lucky in love? Ha! After entering the room, Chang Yangxia could not help but laugh. His eyes sparkled. This pair of sisters are really beautiful. The other party is so strong just after igniting the divine fire. His realm must have been very high before he died. Let's not talk about anything else now. If we can keep him with us, the four of us working together will have a stronger trump card. Shui Xiaoyuan narrowed his eyes slightly and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. It's a combination of men and women. Isn't it tiring to work? Haha. Chang Yangxia laughed loudly when he heard his words. It would be great if we could completely control them. Suddenly, Shui Xiaoyuan said something. Chang Yangxia was slightly stunned. He rolled his eyes and slowly shook his head. After all, the other party is a god, and she's so powerful. Lord Water God, the first divine son of Lingxiao Palace, is here to pay his respects. Chapter 1941. 1941 Xiao Ran's death in 1941. The number one divine son of the Lingxiao treasured palace. Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia were slightly stunned when they heard the report from their subordinates outside. Why is the number one divine son of the Lingxiao treasured palace looking for you? Chang Yangxia looked at Shui Xiaoyuan and asked with a slight frown. I don't know. Last time, they wanted to recruit me, but I directly rejected them. He, the strongest person in the Lingxiao treasured palace, only lit 5 wisps of divine fire, and they actually want me to bow down to them. Shui Xiaoyuan said coldly. Let him in. He sent a voice transmission to the outside. Yes. Greetings, Lord Water God. A few minutes later, a dignified man walked over, cupped his hands, and looked at Chang Yangxia, who was slightly stunned, and said respectfully, You came to find me on behalf of the Lingxiao treasured palace? Shui Xiaoyuan sat on the chair and asked the young man directly. Yes, this is the information of our Lord Golden God. Please take a look. The first divine son nodded respectfully and handed over an item. Shui Xiaoyuan took it and was slightly stunned when he heard the information inside. You asked me to kill the disciple of the Dragon King, Xiao Ran. Interesting. A disciple of the Son of Heaven of the True Dragon. This reward is not bad. Shui Xiaoyuan was slightly stunned when he saw the information inside. However, killing the disciple of the Dragon King will make the Dragon King a mortal enemy. It's not worth it. He said faintly and shook his head. Although the Dragon King did not ignite the divine fire, his current strength was not much weaker than his. It was not worth it to fight to the death for some treasures. After all, a son of heaven of a true dragon still had to be taken seriously, even if the other party was the only one who did not ignite the divine fire. Lord Water God can completely act in secret. If he kills a mortal, then the chances of the Dragon King knowing will be very, very small. The first divine son frowned slightly when he heard his words and said from the side. If the water god in front of him refused, he didn't even know which deity realm expert he should look for. The first divine clan's eldest young master he looked for was directly rejected, and now he was actually rejected. He was just a dragon king who had yet to ignite the divine fire. What was there to be afraid of? If your Lingxiao treasured palace can take out 2 soul-binding pearls, then we will agree. At that time, Water God and I will attack together and we will definitely kill Xiao Ran. Suddenly, Chang Yangxia, who was sitting at the side, stood up and said with a twinkle in his eyes. Ugh. Shui Xiaoyuan was slightly stunned when he heard him speak, and then his eyes shone. That's right. As long as you can take out 2 soul-binding pearls, we will kill even the disciples of the other true dragon son of heaven. Shui Xiaoyuan also stood up and stared at the first divine son. Soul-binding pearls. The first divine son was slightly stunned. I will report to our Lord God now. Okay, report immediately. We only have one condition. Shui Xiaoyuan waved his hand, and the first divine son was directly teleported outside. If we can get the soul-binding pearl, we can... Seeing the first divine son disappear, Chang Yangxia growled with some excitement in his eyes. As long as we get the soul-binding pearl, we'll have a chance to completely subdue those two beauties. Shui Xiaoyuan was also excited. The soul-binding pearl could bind a person's body. It was a great threat even to godly state experts. Although it was not 100% binding, it was a very good weapon to subdue subordinates and other gods. With the soul-binding pearl and some of their methods, they were confident that they could subdue those two ladies. For this, so what if they offended the Dragon King? He did not dare to offend them alone, but with Chang Yangxia joining in, with their combined strength, the Dragon King might not be their match. Moreover, the two women were with them now. Even if they did not subdue them, if the Dragon King came to take revenge, it should not be a problem to ask the two women to help them kill the Dragon King. The danger was not great. It was totally worth the risk. The reward just now was not worth it for them. The soul-binding bead was totally worth it. The two looked at each other and looked outside. Their eyes were shining. My lords, the god of the Lingxiao treasure hall has agreed to your conditions. The two soul-binding beads will be delivered soon. Not long after, the first divine son of the Lingxiao treasure hall walked in and said, "Okay, we will kill Xiao Ran within 10 hours after we receive the soul-binding bead." A smile flashed across Shui Xiaoyuan's eyes as he immediately said, "Yes." The first divine son of the Lingxiao treasured palace nodded and left with cupped hands. Now we have to think of a way to put the soul-binding bead into their bodies. It seems that we have to gain the other party's trust. The two of them looked at each other and could not help but laugh. "Sister, those two guys don't look like good people either. Mother used to say that men are all bad. It seems like it's true." At this moment, at the top of the divine mountain, Huar said to her sister, "If you're trying to curry favor for no reason, you're either evil or stealing. After we recover, let's go find him directly." "Yeah, that bad guy is not bad." The two of them conversed and slowly closed their eyes. Little did they know that they had been schemed against. "What's wrong with your brother? His eyes are a little red and he's still in a trance." The next morning, in Jiang City, Wang Xian was eating his breakfast calmly. He glanced at Xiao Ran, who had left early, and asked Lu Mingxin, "Teacher, my brother is heartbroken." Lu Mingxin looked at her brother's back and said in a low voice, "I don't know why, but Sister Ji Lingfei didn't come back after she went to the Lingxiao Palace. After my brother called her yesterday, he was in a daze." Heartbroken? Wang Xian was slightly stunned. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Shouldn't she be? Isn't Ji Lingfei interested in Xiao Ran? In the beginning, she was the one who followed Xiao Ran willingly." "I don't know either. Sister Ji Lingfei probably wouldn't, but—" Lu Mingxin frowned with a distressed expression. Wang Xian's gaze flickered slightly. He looked in the direction of the Lingxiao Palace and didn't say anything. Naturally, it was better for them to settle the matter of their disciples themselves. Sigh. At this moment, Xiao Ran, who had teleported to the central office of Long Men Academy, sighed silently. He looked at everything in the room and at the now empty table. His body trembled. He quietly walked over and slowly landed on the table. He touched everything on the table and closed his eyes slightly. This is that Xiao Ran. There should be no mistake. Chop off his head. At this moment, two voices suddenly sounded in the room. Xiao suddenly opened his eyes, but just then he saw a palm chopping towards his head. Chapter 1942. 1942-1942 Slaughter of Gods and Extermination of Sects 1. In the quiet office of Long Men Academy, a piercing sound was heard. Xiao Ran widened his eyes. His pupils were filled with fear as he stared at the two figures in front of him. However, at this moment, time was frozen. Death was approaching. In just a split second, a head was removed. There aren't any traces left behind. Then the Dragon King shouldn't be able to find out what we did. Let's go. Shui Xiaoyuan glanced at the corpse on the ground indifferently. His figure moved, and the two disappeared. Soon, the two figures appeared in the void. They threw the head in their hands toward the first divine son of the Lingxiao treasured palace. Mission accomplished. The two people said indifferently and disappeared in an instant. You want to lay your hands on goddess Ji Lingfei? Don't you know your own strength and background? You really don't know death. If it weren't for the next thing, I would have killed you easily. The first divine son of the Lingxiao treasured palace looked at the head in his hand. After confirming it, he casually threw it away. The head fell from tens of thousands of meters in the sky and directly fell into the ocean below. Dean. Not good. The dean was killed. The dean was killed. An hour later, an exclamation sounded in Long Men Academy. In the dean's office of Long Men Academy, a group of disciples from Long Men Academy rushed over. When they saw the corpses in the room, their faces were filled with shock. Who dares to kill Dean Xiao? Dean Xiao is the disciple of the Dragon King. Dean Xiao was actually killed. Oh my God, immediately report to the Dragon King. Immediately report to the Dragon King. Cries of surprise rang out from the disciples of Long Men Academy. The death of their dean was a huge blow to the entire Dragon Gate Academy. The news of Dean Xiao's death quickly spread to the entire Dragon Gate Academy. When all the students received the news, their faces were filled with shock. Dean Xiao was actually dead. The founder of the Dragon Gate Academy was actually assassinated in his office. All the students' faces turned pale as they discussed in fear. In the villa by the sea, Wang Xian was giving Lu Mingxin some pointers on cultivation matters at the top of the villa. When he received this news, his expression changed slightly. Teacher, what happened to you? Lu Mingxin sensed the drastic change in Wang Xian's aura and asked immediately. Let's go. Wang Xian's expression turned cold slowly. With a wave of his arm, he led Lu Mingxin directly to Xiao Ran's office. Huh? Ao Jian, who was standing at the side, felt Wang Xian's anger and was slightly shocked. His figure moved and followed behind. Buzz. Wang Xian's figure appeared in the office of Long Men Academy. Dragon King. Everyone was slightly shocked when they saw the Dragon King who appeared out of thin air. They quickly bowed. Dragon King, Xiao Ran. A draconid said to Wang Xian with an extremely embarrassed expression. Brother. Brother. At the side, when Lu Mingxin saw the corpse on the ground, her body staggered and tears flowed down instantly. She pounced over in grief. Wang Xian looked at the corpse on the ground and scanned his surroundings with his yin-yang and 5 elements dragon eyes. Other than 2 faint footprints, there were no other traces. All of you get out. Wang Xian said to everyone in the room with a gloomy face. Yes, it's the Dragon King. The surrounding air was almost frozen. Everyone immediately nodded respectfully and walked outside. Woo, teacher, brother. Lu Mingxin was crying bitterly and her body was trembling. Wang Xian squatted down and patted her shoulder gently. Dragon King. At this moment, Ao Jian's figure appeared. Looking at the headless corpse on the ground, his expression changed slightly. Ao Jian, make a trip back to the Dragon Palace. Bring the soul-returning embryo from the ancestral tree and bring some resources over. Wang Xian's face was solemn as he ordered Ao Jian. It's the Dragon King. Ao Jian nodded immediately and disappeared. Mingxin, don't cry. Don't worry, I'm here. He patted the heartbroken Lu Mingxin and said gently. Teacher, brother, is there really any hope? Teacher, I beg you, Sabas Obi. She looked at Wang Xian with a sob. No problem. Don't worry, I'm here. Wang Xian nodded at her and stood up slowly. He stared coldly at Xiao Ran's headless corpse. His eyes were filled with endless coldness. If it weren't for the 2 soul-returning fruits in the Dragon Palace, Xiao Ran wouldn't have been saved by the immortals and gods this time. He would definitely die. He wasn't a member of the Dragon Palace to begin with. If he died, it meant that he was dead. To be able to kill Xiao Ran in such a secretive manner, only peak-stage demigod and godly state experts can do it. Furthermore, I didn't even see any traces of the yin-yang and 5 elemental dragon eyes. He must be a godly state expert. 2 godly state experts came to assassinate a mortal? Wang Xian's eyes were extremely cold as he kept thinking. To be able to use a godly state expert to kill a mortal, how much hatred was this? Ever since he came to Earth, the only godly state experts that he had offended were the Pyramid faction. Now that the Pyramid faction was greatly weakened, it was impossible for them to send 2 gods to kill a mere disciple of his. However, if it had nothing to do with him, who would spend such a huge amount of effort to assassinate a mortal? Ji Lingfei? Ling Shao Palace? Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. Ji Lingfei had suddenly returned to Ling Shao Palace, and now she was suddenly heartbroken. Was it the background behind Ji Lingfei? Ling Shao Palace. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly. If it really is Ling Shao Palace, just you wait. Wang Xian mumbled as he stood there and waited quietly. Lu Mingxin stood at the side with a lump in her throat. Time passed slowly. At this moment, the news of Xiao Ran's death on the internet had caused a huge sensation. Xiao Ran was the founder of the Dragon Gate Academy. Currently, the Dragon Gate Academy was the #1 academy in the world, the leader of all the academies. His only disciple, the Dragon King, had the Dragon King's backing. He could be considered to have a deep background. However, today he was found dead in the Dragon Gate Academy by the disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy, and his head was beheaded. Dean Xiao Ran was actually assassinated. This is simply too terrifying. The founder of the Dragon Gate Academy was assassinated. Is the Dragon Gate Academy going to be finished? I don't know who did it, but they actually dared to kill the disciple of the Dragon King. With the rise of all the gods on earth and all the sons of heaven of the true dragons, there should be many people who dare to offend the Dragon King. After all, the Dragon King hasn't ignited the divine fire yet. Those who dare to assassinate the disciple of the Dragon King should not be afraid of the Dragon King. Countless people were talking about the assassination of Xiao Ran, and everyone was waiting for the Dragon King's reaction. There were all kinds of discussions on the internet, and all the disciples and students of the Dragon Gate Academy were in a state of panic. Dragon King, the soul-returning embryo is here, and there are also some resources. An hour later, Ao Jian returned. Chapter 1943. 1943 1943 Slaughter of Gods and Extermination of Sex 2. Soul-returning embryo. Absorb the souls of the dead and revive them. Soul-returning embryo. It was a very short introduction, but its effect was heaven-defying. Revive the dead. Wang Xian took the soul-returning embryo handed over by Ao Jian and crushed it directly. A type of information appeared in his mind. Following the information, Wang Xian's mind moved slightly. The crushed soul-returning embryo was emitting a mysterious power that enveloped Xiao Ran's corpse. Sensing this mysterious power, Wang Xian slowly closed his eyes. But at the bottom of the sea, thousands of kilometers away, a head was suddenly enveloped by a mysterious energy. Slowly, the head disappeared in an instant. In the office of the Dean of Longmen Academy, Xiao Ran's head appeared out of thin air on his body. The mysterious power of the soul-returning embryo completely enveloped him. Brother! Lu Mingxin covered her mouth slightly when she saw this scene. Her face was filled with excitement. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Wang Xian did not show any signs of surprise when he saw this scene. However, it would still take a few days for him to completely recover. His palm landed on Xiao Ran's head. Xiao Ran! With a thought, he shouted in his mind. Master, am I dead? Where is this place? A confused voice entered his mind. To be exact, you were killed. Do you know the person who killed you? Wang Xian heard his voice and asked directly. Master, I only saw 2 figures at that time. They were somewhat familiar. They seemed to be gods. I didn't have the slightest ability to resist them. Master, am I dead now? Xiao Ran replied. Describe the figures of the 2 of them. Rest for a few days and you will wake up in a few days. Don't be anxious. Wang Xian comforted him. It's Master. Xiao Ran replied and quickly described the figures of the two of them. Wang Xian stood up and waved his hand. Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia appeared in the void of the office. Find out who these two figures are. They should be godly state experts. Wang Xian said to Lu Mingxin, who was beside him. It's Master. Lu Mingxin nodded immediately and took out her phone to check on the internet. 80% of the gods who ignited the godly fire could find pictures of them on the internet. Teacher, I found one. That figure is known as the water god. He used to be the second most favored person on the prodigy roll. Now, he has ignited the godly fire. A month ago, he broke through to the godly state. The true spirit sect was founded by him. As for the other figure, there is no information about him on the internet. Teacher, did they harm my brother? Very soon, Lu Mingxin found a piece of information and asked Wang Xian. Where is the true spirit sect? Wang Xian nodded slowly. His eyes were sparkling with a cold glint. Teacher, the true spirit sect is now occupying the divine mountain, the Yellow Mountain. The Yellow Mountain? As Wang Xian spoke, he looked at Ao Jian. Call Ao Qitian and the rest over. It's the Dragon King. Ao Jian nodded immediately. True spirit sect? Water god? Xiao Ran didn't offend them. Why did the two gods come to assassinate him? Wang Xian frowned slightly. He initially thought that this matter was done by the Lingxiao treasured palace, but he didn't expect it to not be the case. No matter who he is, he will have to pay the price of blood for killing the disciple of my Dragon King. A hint of viciousness flashed across Wang Xian's eyes. Mingxin, take care of your brother first. He spoke to Lu Mingxin and walked out slowly. Dragon King. At the entrance, all the disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy were guarding outside. When they saw the Dragon King coming out, they shouted respectfully. Everything will be the same here at the Dragon Gate Academy. I'm here. He spoke indifferently and walked straight out. It's the Dragon King. When all the disciples of Dragon Gate Academy heard this, they heaved a sigh of relief. If the Dragon King did not care about Dragon Gate Academy, the entire Dragon Gate Academy would be finished. Sensing the murderous aura from the Dragon King, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. After hesitating for a moment, they followed behind the Dragon King and walked out. Buzz. Buzz. Greetings, Dragon King. When Wang Xian reached the door, figures appeared out of thin air. Ao Jian, Ao Yao, Ao Qitian, Ao Xingmu, Ao Qi, Ao Crab, Mao Zisen, Ba Qi, and Ao Fenghuang. Greetings, Dragon King. The 9 figures shouted respectfully in human form. Behind them, 100 members of the Demon War Department were holding metal clubs that were filled with a violent aura. Around them, all the disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy were paying attention to the situation in the dean's office. When they saw the Dragon King come out, all the students' eyes were filled with awe. However, when the members of the Dragon Palace appeared out of thin air, all of them were slightly shocked and their faces revealed a look of surprise. What are those people and creatures? Are they the Dragon King's men? They should be the subordinates of the Dragon King. Why did the Dragon King call them here? All the students were shocked. Even the disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy looked on in astonishment. Let's go to the yellow sky. Today, we will slaughter the gods and destroy the sect. Wang Xian swept his gaze across the members of the Dragon Palace and said with a cold expression, "It's the Dragon King." As soon as he said that, the members of the Dragon Palace responded in a cold tone. Buzz. Wang Xian's figure moved and flew directly into the sky. The members of the Dragon Palace followed closely behind him and flew in the direction of the Yellow Mountain. Oh my God, what is the Dragon King doing? Slaughtering the gods and exterminating the sect? The Dragon King knows who killed Dean Xiao. Slaughtering the gods and exterminating the sect? This is so domineering. Yellow Mountain seems to be the territory of the true spirit sect. There's a water god there. It's a powerful force that rarely has a god there. Is it that god from the true spirit sect who killed Dean Xiao? Our Dragon King will exterminate them? Shocked voices came from the students' mouths one after another. The True Spirit Sect, you're finished. The Dragon King will definitely exterminate you. When the insightful void-level disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy saw this scene, they clenched their fists tightly. They had witnessed the terror of the Dragon King and the strength of the members of the Dragon Palace. If Dean Xiao had not banned them from talking about it, the entire world would have been in an uproar. Perhaps my Dragon King is too low-key. Someone actually dared to assassinate my disciple. In the sky, Wang Xian flew towards the Yellow Mountain at a terrifying speed. A sinister look appeared in his eyes. Since that was the case, I will let all of you witness the strength of my Dragon King and the Dragon Palace. Boom! However, when the Dragon King led a group of the Dragon Palace's subordinates and flew toward Huang Tian, the internet was already abuzz. When the students of Dragon Gate Academy saw the Dragon King leading a group of experts to avenge Dean Xiao, they were naturally very excited. They excitedly posted on the internet that the Dragon King had gone to slaughter the gods and destroy the sect to avenge his disciple. When everyone confirmed this news, they were also extremely shocked. The news of Xiao Rant's murder had spread all over the internet an hour ago. Everyone was also waiting for the Dragon King's attitude. They did not expect that the Dragon King had already found the murderer and had already killed him. Chapter 1944. 1944 Slaughter of Gods and Extermination of Sects 3. The Water God of the True Spirit Sect ignited the divine fire not long ago. His strength should not be a match for the Dragon King. I reckon that the Water God is going to be unlucky. I wonder what grudge the Water God has with the Dean of the Dragon Gate Academy. He actually assassinated him in secret and did not dare to kill him openly. Perhaps he was afraid of the Dragon King's revenge. Now the Dragon King has led his men to fly towards the Yellow Mountain. After all, there will be another big battle. The entire internet was in an uproar. Everyone was paying attention to the Dragon King's revenge for his disciple. At the same time, all the disciples of the True Spirit Sect in the Yellow Mountain received the news that the Dragon King was flying towards the Yellow Mountain with his men. The disciples of the True Spirit Sect changed their expressions and immediately reported the news to the hierarch. With the current strength of their True Spirit Sect, they were no match for the Dragon King. Reporting to Lord Water God. The hierarch of the True Spirit Sect came to a halt at the top of the Yellow Mountain with a changed expression and bowed toward the inside. What's the matter? In the hall, Shui Xiaoyuan was playing chess with Chang Yangxia on the chessboard. When he saw the hierarch of the True Spirit Sect running over in a hurry, he glanced at him and asked, Lord Water God is in trouble. The Dragon King is rushing towards our Yellow Mountain with his men. He said that he wants to destroy us. The master of True Spirit Cult immediately reported in a panic. A Dragon King. Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia stopped what they were doing. They looked at each other in surprise. What happened? Shui Xiaoyuan's eyes sparkled as he slightly raised his eyebrows and asked, Lord Water God, we also heard on the internet that the Dragon King has come to avenge his disciple. The True Spirit Cult Master immediately replied, Revenge. Shui Xiaoyuan pursed his lips and his face was full of surprise. Then, his face slowly turned cold as he looked at Chang Yangxia. He has come? Hee, a Dragon King thinks he is invincible? The corners of Chang Yangxia's mouth curled up slightly, and a cold look appeared in his eyes. That's right. A Dragon King who hasn't ignited the divine fire really thinks we're afraid of him. If he dares to come here today, I'll make sure he doesn't come back. Shui Xiaoyuan laughed loudly. The two of them looked at each other, and with a gentle wave of their arms, their figures directly arrived at the highest peak at the entrance of the Yellow Mountain. Following them was a chessboard and 2 futons floating at the entrance of the Yellow Mountain. With our strength, we are enough to deal with the Dragon King. However, if we want to keep him here, we might need to ask the 2 women to help us. I just don't know if they are willing to help. Chang Yangxia looked at the peak of the mountain in the center and said faintly, No need. We might not be able to kill him in other places, but this is my territory. With the help of the array, we can kill him. Shui Xiaoyuan said lightly, his face full of confidence. Oh. Chang Yangxia raised his eyebrows in surprise. Haha, that's even better. The two laughed and looked at the chessboard. Shui Xiaoyuan placed the chess pieces lightly. Although the Dragon King knew that they were the ones who had assassinated Xiao Ran, they did not panic at all. It was nothing more than an accident. They just had to solve this accident. Therefore, at the top of the mountain at the entrance of the Yellow Mountain, two figures could be seen sitting cross-legged and playing chess, full of indifference. This scene was also seen by all the disciples of the True Spirit sect. When they saw the two figures sitting there playing chess, everyone's eyes widened slightly, full of surprise. That blue figure is our Lord Water God. Who is the other figure? Our Lord Water God is sitting on the top of the mountain at the entrance and playing chess with that person. Is he waiting for the arrival of the Dragon King? Hiss, those who can play chess with our Lord Water God must be godly state experts. My God, the two lords are actually leisurely waiting for the arrival of the Dragon King. There's another godly state expert, two godly state experts. Even if the Dragon King comes, we are not afraid at all. That Dragon King actually said that he would slaughter the gods and exterminate the sect. I want to see how he will exterminate us without lighting the divine fire. I'm afraid that the Dragon King will become a joke. The excited voices came from all the disciples of the True Spirit sect. They looked at the two indifferent figures at the mountain peak at the entrance of the Yellow Mountain, and their faces were filled with awe. This was their Lord God. So what if the Dragon King came? It was just that one of them hadn't even ignited the divine fire. What was there to be afraid of? Around the Yellow Mountain, some people who saw this scene were also shocked and filled with surprise. The reaction of the Yellow Mountain was immediately posted on the internets. When everyone saw the picture of the two gods sitting cross-legged on the top of the mountain playing chess, their eyes widened slightly. How can there be two gods in Huangshan? Who is the other god? Two gods? If there are two gods, then the Dragon King might not be their match. Playing chess? I really didn't expect the two gods in Huangshan to be so indifferent. They totally don't put the Dragon King in their eyes. When everyone saw the picture on the internet, they were all in an uproar. Besides them, there was only one water god on the Yellow Mountain and they were no match for the Dragon King. However, they did not expect that there were two gods on the Yellow Mountain. Moreover, these two gods were sitting on the top of the mountain and playing chess. It was obvious that they did not think much of the Dragon King. At the same time, this was also the strong confidence of the two gods on the Yellow Mountain. This showed that they were not afraid of the Dragon King. The next battle will probably be a big one. It's not certain who will win or lose. Everyone was paying attention to the news on the internet. Unfortunately, this time, they could only wait for the latest news on the internet. There was no live broadcast. This time, I can take a good look at the Dragon King's strength and see how strong the true Dragon Son of Heaven is. After some gods received this news, their figures moved and flew towards the Yellow Mountain, preparing to take a closer look. To be discovered after assassinating a mortal, what an idiot. In the soaring heavens treasured palace, Jin Feng felt a little disdainful after receiving this news. He didn't have much interest in this battle. Boom. Boom. In front of the Yellow Mountain, a group of people with a terrifying murderous aura suddenly flew over. When the group of people arrived, the clouds in the entire sky scattered in all directions. Wang Xian stood in the middle and stared coldly at the spot in front of him. His gaze was locked onto the two figures who were playing chess on the peak of the Yellow Mountain. His eyes revealed a cold glint. The Dragon King is here. The Dragon King is here. I didn't expect him to release such a terrifying killing intent so quickly. Humph, is he disrespecting us? Voices rang out one after another in the Yellow Mountain, and everyone stared at the Dragon King and the others who were hurrying over. They're here. The corners of Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia's lips curled up slightly. They stood still. Chapter 1945. 1945 1945 Slaughter of Gods and Extermination of Sects 4. The wind in the entire Yellow Mountains seemed to be fixed. A solemn atmosphere filled a radius of dozens of kilometers. Everyone around the Yellow Mountains stared at the Dragon King and the others in the sky, their eyes shining. Pa! On the mountain peak at the entrance of the Yellow Mountain, the crisp sound of chess pieces being played was unusually clear at this time. The water god and the other gods of the Yellow Mountain are so calm. Even when the Dragon King came, their expressions didn't change at all. They are so confident. It seems that they don't put the Dragon King in their eyes. Around the Yellow Mountain, some people saw this scene and looked at the two gods playing chess, filled with admiration and respect. This was the appearance of a strong person. When others fought, they still played chess. My disciple, Xiao Ran, should not have any enmity with you. Why did you kill him? Wang Xian stared at them. His eyes were sparkling. He swept his gaze across the surroundings and asked faintly, "We will play this game later." When Chang Yangxia heard Wang Xian's words, he looked at Xue Xiaoyuan with a smile. "Well, wait for a while." Xue Xiaoyuan stood up slowly with a confident look on his face. He looked at Wang Xian and raised his head slightly. "So what if I kill him? What's the point of why?" His indifferent voice reverberated throughout the entire Yellow Mountain. Hiss! Upon hearing his words, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air as shock appeared on their faces. "So what if I kill him?" Our water god is so domineering. If we kill him, we will kill him." When everyone from the True Spirit sect saw the domineering water god, excitement was written all over their faces. He was indeed a god who stood high and mighty. "So what if we kill him?" Upon hearing their words, Wang Xian muttered to himself. His gaze swept across everything in the Yellow Mountain. "Since that's the case, let's raise this place to the ground," he said faintly. Raise this place to the ground? Dragon King, you are really arrogant. Do you really think that you can kill us just because you are the son of heaven of the true dragon? I would like to see how a son of heaven of the true dragon who has not ignited the divine fire can raise this place to the ground. As soon as Wang Xian finished his sentence, Chang Yangxia laughed out loud and exuded a terrifying pressure. He attacked Wang Xian and the rest directly. "Today, I will make sure that you, Dragon King, never return." Xue Xiaoyuan's body trembled and a vast ocean appeared around him. The ocean appeared out of thin air and exuded a powerful aura. Dragon King, do you know whose territory this is? You dare to step into my territory. I have to say, you are really stupid. Heavenly water formation, rise. As Xue Xiaoyuan spoke, his arm pointed toward the void. For gigantic water pillars appeared in 4 directions. Even Wang Xian and the rest were in the center of the water pillars. This water god has already made preparations in advance. He is completely waiting for the arrival of the Dragon King. It seems that this Dragon King is indeed a little arrogant and stupid. He entered Xue Xiaoyuan's territory directly and was trapped by the formation. With Xue Xiaoyuan and another god, along with the formation, a Dragon King who didn't ignite the divine fire is dead for sure. The few gods who were hiding in the void and watching the scene muttered to themselves, "Dragon King, I haven't made a move since I upgraded. Let me kill them." Ao Crab shook his 8 arms and asked Wang Xian for instructions. "Okay." Wang Xian nodded his head. "Ao Crab, let's each kill one of them. Let's see who will kill them first." The combative Ao Qitian waved his arms and the ocean-pacifying needle appeared in his hands. Roar roar. "How dare the two of you touch the disciple of the Dragon King?" As Ao Qitian spoke, he let out a furious roar. His body moved and transformed into a 100-meter-long demonic monkey. His entire body emitted a terrifying demonic aura as he attacked Xue Xiaoyuan directly. "Kacha, leave both of them to me." Ao Qi shouted in slight dissatisfaction when he saw Ao Qitian charging straight at him. With a light leap, he directly transformed into an earthen yellow crab that was 1,000 meters long. At the very front were 2 incomparably huge pincers. Behind him were 8 legs that were filled with sharp thorns, making them look somewhat sinister. Boom! The ground shook violently as Ao Crab attacked. The moment Ao Qitian and Ao Crab attacked, Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia were completely dumbfounded. What was going on? What the hell was going on? Wasn't their opponent the Dragon King? Why did 2 godly state existences rush out from the Dragon King's side? Moreover, from the aura that burst out from him, he was not weaker than them. In fact, he was even stronger than them. The reason why they dared to sit there and play chess leisurely and did not put the Dragon King in their eyes at all was because in their eyes, the Dragon King's arrival was just sending himself to his death. However, what was going on with these 2 godly state experts who had charged straight at them? What was going on? The 2 of them were completely dumbfounded. Their posturing was for the Dragon King, not for the 2 of them. What's going on? Beside the Dragon King, how could it be? The gods watching in the void, the people looking in their direction, and all the disciples of the True Spirit sect also opened their mouths slightly. What was going on with the 2 godly state experts who suddenly appeared beside the Dragon King? Take this. At this moment, Ao Qitian's violent voice rang out. The sea-pacifying needle in his hand directly became 10,000 meters long and smashed toward Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia. Whoosh! In their confusion, the 2 widened their eyes and hurriedly dodged to the side. Boom! An incomparably loud boom shook the entire Yellow Mountain. The mountain peak at the very front, which was nearly 10,000 meters long, directly collapsed. Rocks shot out in all directions. The other one, your opponent is me. The Dragon King said that he will raise your place to the ground. Crack, crack, crack. Ao Qi made a strange sound when he saw Ao Qitian's attack. He was unwilling to be left behind. Rumble! His body emitted an earthen yellow luster. On the ground, rocks and large chunks of soil rose into the air. It was as if a magnitude 10 earthquake had occurred in the entire Yellow Mountain. Boom! Countless rocks and chunks of soil smashed directly toward Chang Yangxia. Damn it, why did 2 such powerful godly state experts suddenly appear? Chang Yangxia and Shui Xiaoyuan's faces instantly broke out in cold sweat. The calm expression on their faces just now completely disappeared. Until now, they still couldn't understand why the Dragon King would bring 2 such terrifying subordinates. If he knew that the Dragon King had 2 such powerful subordinates, how could he still dare to show off in this chess game? They would have fled far away long ago. Roar, 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 enjoy the fury. Without giving them any time to think, Ao Qitian's entire body was blood-red. In the middle of his body, there were streaks of blood-red lightning that flowed and directly attacked Shui Xiaoyuan. Ao Qitian, who had fire, thunder, and darkness attributes, was unexcelled in the fury. Chapter 1946. 1946 was razed to the ground. Heavenly water formation, open. When Shui Xiaoyuan saw Ao Qitian charging at him with that violent force, his expression changed drastically. He gritted his teeth, took out a formation compass, and waved his hand. Boom, boom, boom. The water pillars that were 100 meters in diameter and shot straight into the sky from 4 directions immediately bloomed with terrifying water spray. The 4 water pillars attacked Ao Qitian directly. At the same time, the sea beasts formed from various water elements in the ocean behind him attacked Ao Qitian. The overwhelming attacks completely covered Ao Qitian. Roar! When Ao Qitian saw Shui Xiaoyuan's attack, he raised his head and let out a wild roar. He swept his gaze across the water pillars and swept his long tail across the sky. The tail, which was made up of lightning, darkness, and flames, swept across the water pillars, causing the entire heavenly water array to tremble. Ocean pacifying needle, freeze. He looked at the densely packed sea beasts that covered the entire sky in front of him and waved the ocean-pacifying needle in his hand forward. The most powerful ability of the ocean-pacifying needle was that it could stabilize the ocean within a few thousand kilometers and calm the waves. It could suppress the water element. A single ocean-pacifying needle froze all the sea beasts in the sky. Roar! Ao Chitian roared, and a blood-red energy that was a combination of the three elements rushed forward. The sea beasts instantly collapsed and dissipated. Mad dragon chains. Crack, crack, crack. Ao Chitian moved his arm, and the sea-pacifying needle in his hand was wrapped with chains. After the blood-red chains wrapped around the sea-pacifying needle, they immediately attacked Shui Xiaoyuan. How can he be so strong? Seeing Ao Chitian's attack, Shui Xiaoyuan's heart beat violently, and his eyes revealed a look of fear. He had used all his strength and the array formation, but it had been easily resisted. One had to know that the array formation he had set up was capable of severely injuring two divine fire gods. Yet, it had been easily resisted. This. Ka, move the mountain. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, a violent sound rang out from the side, causing Shui Xiaoyuan's heart to pound violently. At the side, two mountains that were 5,000 to 6,000 meters tall rose from the ground, one on the left and one on the right, and smashed towards Changyangsha. This is a divine mountain that even a demigod couldn't break. Now, it's being lifted up. Changyangsha's expression changed drastically when he saw Ao Crab's violent attack. He held a ring of fire weapon in his hand, and with a wave of his arm, rings of fire smashed towards the two mountains. Crack, crack, crack. At this moment, Ao Crab's body was covered in a layer of earthy yellow. Within the earthy yellow, traces of demonic qi circulated. Crack, crack, crack. His two claws with pincers and the other 8 claws directly tore toward Changyangsha. Ring of fire, ring of God. Changyangsha directly put the ring of fire weapon in his hand toward Ao Crab. In the air, the ring of fire rapidly expanded and enveloped the Ao Crab. Crack, crack, crack. The Ao Crab let out a strange cry and 2 huge pincers directly pounced on it. At the same time, streams of earthy yellow soil spread toward the ring of fire, extinguishing all the flames on it. Not good. When the yellow soil covered the ring of fire, Changyangsha discovered to his horror that his weapon had lost its sense. Gulp. He gulped, his eyes filled with fear. He was no match for this monster in front of him. Let's run. Our water god and the others are no match for those 2 monsters. It's over, it's over. How is this possible? The Dragon King hasn't made a move yet. The battle between the 4 immortals and gods in Yellow Mountain instantly turned the entire mountain into a mess. When all the disciples of the True Spirit sect saw this scene, their faces turned extremely pale. At the beginning, when they saw Lord Water God and the others leisurely playing chess and waiting for the arrival of the Dragon King, they thought that Lord Water God was completely unafraid of the Dragon King. In fact, the Dragon King might even die in the Yellow Mountain today. But unexpectedly, the Dragon King didn't even make a move. Just 2 of his subordinates had completely suppressed Lord Water God. Many people in the True Spirit sect wanted to cry. Some disciples couldn't help but curse in their hearts, Water God is too pretentious. FUCK, what's going on now? Remembering that they had mocked and cursed the Dragon King on the internet just now, their expressions were very ugly. The Dragon King actually has 2 such terrifying underlings. These 2 underlings of the Dragon King aren't inferior to the other true dragon sons of heaven, right? This Dragon King is really strong. The gods and citizens who had been paying attention to this place all this time sucked in a deep breath. They had originally thought that the Dragon King, who hadn't ignited the divine fire, would at most be comparable to those ordinary gods. However, they had never imagined that he actually had 2 such powerful subordinates. He hadn't even made a move against the 2 gods of Yellow Mountain. Those 2 pretentious guys are going to fall. Everyone thought of the scene of the water god playing chess with another god while waiting for the Dragon King. They thought of the water god disdainfully saying that he would kill them. Now, ladies, save us, save our lives. At this moment, Shui Xiaoyuan, who was swept by the mad dragon chain, instantly spat out a mouthful of blood. A divine kingdom appeared behind him, and he hurriedly ran towards the mountain in the middle of the Yellow Mountain. Save us! Chang Yangxia was also in a sorry state. He had wanted to teleport away, but he had been interrupted. This made him extremely terrified. When he heard Shui Xiaoyuan's voice, he also ran towards the mountain with all his might. That was their last lifeline. If the two women were willing to help them with all their might, they could still kill the Dragon King this time. They had seen the two women kill the god of Fire Palace's 2 wisps of divine fire in an instant. Sister, the 2 guys outside seem to be in trouble and are asking us for help. At this moment, Huar and Kair were sitting cross-legged on the highest peak in the middle of the Yellow Mountain. The surrounding branches covered them all. When the battle broke out just now, they had already sensed the movement. However, they did not care and were recovering from their injuries. When they faintly heard the 2 people's desperate cries for help, Huar opened her mouth and asked, "If it's possible, help them escape." Kair hesitated for a moment before saying, the 2 of them had brought them here so that they could recover from their injuries. No matter what, this was a small favor. They had to return this favor. Kair waved her arm, and the branches that wrapped them dispersed. Violent and tyrannical sounds and auras came from outside. This caused Huar and Kair to immediately frown. Ka, if you want to escape, go to hell. At this moment, they heard a violent sound and quickly looked over. An incomparably huge earth spike was attacking in their direction. There were traces of magic patterns on the earth spike. Sensing the aura of the magic patterns on it, their expressions changed slightly. Evil? Chapter 1947. 1947 was razed to the ground. Yaoxie. Huar and Kair were very familiar with Yaoxie's aura. Once, they had fallen at the hands of the powerful Yaoxie. Looking at the magic patterns on the earth spike, a cold expression appeared on their faces. "Break for me!" Huar shouted softly. The star grass above her head flickered slightly and instantly slashed towards the incomparably terrifying earth spike. Bang! A collision that wasn't very loud caused the entire earth spike to instantly collapse. Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia, who were flying towards Huar and Kair, had joyful expressions on their faces. They revealed excited expressions. "Ladies, save us. They want to kill us and destroy our entire Yellow Mountain." Shui Xiaoyuan immediately flew to Huar and Kair's side. When he saw the terrifying power of the star grass, a hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. Chang Yangxia knew the strength of that crab-like monster. That attack just now was definitely not something he could withstand. The power of that attack was almost comparable to the powerful attack of 2 divine fire gods. However, it was easily broken by the woman in front of him, causing him to feel delighted. His life could be saved and even. His eyes were shining with shame and anger. "Humph, let's kill him." Huar and Kair looked at the huge crab that continued to fly toward them, their small faces full of killing intent. They had not planned to help Shui Xiaoyuan and Kair fight their opponents at all. However, sensing the demonic aura on Ao Crab, they decided to kill him. "Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies. With these 2 ladies here, we will definitely be able to kill them." Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia revealed excited expressions. They even wanted to roar at this moment. Ka, landslide. Ao Crab stared at the 4 figures on the mountain peak in front of him. His entire body was still filled with violent killing intent. He had just arrived on Earth, so he naturally did not know Huar and Kair. Moreover, Huar Kair had already grown up. You big crab, are you still arrogant?" Huar looked at the ferocious Ao Crab with an angry expression and waved her arm. In the sky, one by one, thorns seemed to fall from the sky and directly attacked Ao Crab. At the same time, the star grass trembled slightly, and with a flash, it attacked Ao Crab again. The thorns in the sky twined around Ao Crab, and one thorn after another wrapped around his 2 pincers and 8 legs. But the star grass came in front of Ao Crab again, causing his violent aura to stagnate. He instantly condensed an indestructible earth shield in front of him. Bang! However, the powerful force still caused Ao Crab to fly backward. Roar! Ao Chitian, who had rushed over from behind, roared when he saw this scene. His blood-red Goyu's eyes locked onto the mountain peak in front of him. Although his several hundred-meter-tall body was much smaller than Ao Crab's, his aura was even more violent. However, when he raised the sea-pacifying divine needle in his hand high and was about to attack, his hand froze slightly. Goyu's 3 eyes were slightly stunned as he looked at Hwar and Kair in surprise. What's going on? Why are there 2 gods suddenly appearing? Hiss, who are the 2 girls that Shui Xiaoyuan asked for help from? How can they be so strong? That crab-like godly state creature was actually sent flying. This Shui Xiaoyuan actually has 2 such strong godly teammates. No wonder they were so calm and even arrogant in the beginning. Those 2 girls are so terrifying. Now, the Dragon King might be in trouble. Around the Yellow Mountain, all the experts who were paying attention to this side were slightly shocked when they saw the 2 powerful immortal gods that had suddenly appeared. No one had expected the Dragon King to have 2 such terrifying subordinates. But now, no one had expected the Water God to have 2 even more powerful teammates. Haha, our Lord Water God has even more powerful godly state friends. The Dragon King is going to be finished. They are going to be finished. 4 gods. Our Lord Water God has 4 gods. The Dragon King only has 3, even including himself. And those 2 goddesses defeated that monster in one move. Seeing this scene, all the disciples of the True Spirit sect were excited. They had been terrified, thinking that their god was going to die. They had not expected that 2 more powerful goddesses would suddenly appear on their side. This made everyone of the True Spirit sect excited. Kill the Dragon King. After surviving the disaster, they also roared with some savagery. The huge change in the scene shocked everyone who was paying attention to this place. The power of the Dragon King's forces had already exceeded everyone's expectations. Now, the power of the Yellow Mountain and Water God was even more shocking. The next battle would definitely be earth-shattering. Little Princess Ao Chigen pays his respects to the 2 little princesses. Just when everyone thought that the next battle would be even more terrifying, a look of shock appeared in everyone's eyes. In the void at the center of the Yellow Mountain, the extremely violent god-level creature holding a golden rod and blood-red chains was actually kneeling in the void, bowing towards the direction of the highest mountain. Master! He shouted respectfully. When everyone saw this scene, their mouths were slightly agape as they watched in shock. Oh! Hwar, whose delicate little face was filled with anger, and Kair were also slightly stunned when they saw Ao Chitian suddenly charging over. Of course, they remembered Ao Chitian. Even though they had never seen his battle form, this was his aura. When they saw him kneeling on one knee and calling out to them respectfully, their expressions changed slightly. They quickly scanned their surroundings. However, at this moment, at the edge of the Yellow Mountain, Wang Xian, who had been standing there quietly and did not make a move, was also stunned when he saw the 2 figures who had suddenly appeared. Although the 2 little girls had grown up and were big girls. However, the familiar aura, the identical familiar face, and the star grass on top of their heads. Wang Xian recognized the 2 little girls in an instant. They were Hwar and Kair. He was slightly stunned and immediately flew toward the center of the Yellow Mountain. The members of the Dragon Palace behind him immediately followed behind. This sudden scene once again left everyone in a state of bewilderment. What was going on? What was going on? Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia were also stunned. Greetings, little princess. When Wang Xian flew over, Hua Er and Kai Er immediately noticed him. There was a hint of surprise and excitement in their eyes. There was a hint of complexity and a hint of strangeness. They pouted slightly and looked at him intently. Wang Xian stopped about 2,000 meters away from them and looked at them with a smile on his face. Ao Jian, Ao Xingmu, and the rest immediately bowed to Huarkai. The rest of the members of the Dragon Palace also bowed when they saw Ao Jian, Ao Xingmu, and Ao Qitian doing the same. Greetings, little princess. Ao Crab, who was sent flying, flew over in a daze. However, he quickly followed and shouted. Chapter 1948. 1948 was razed to the ground. What's going on? Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia, who were watching the scene, were dumbfounded. The subordinates of the Dragon King were actually kneeling in front of the two goddesses who had appeared out of nowhere and calling her little princess. What was going on? Huar saw Ao Chigan Ao Jian, and the rest of them kneeling and calling out to her respectfully. Their faces turned slightly red as they looked at Wang Xian, who was standing in front of them. Little brother daddy. Huar opened her mouth and called out playfully. Then, she extended her arms towards Wang Xian directly. Little brother daddy? Kaia was slightly stunned when she heard her sister's words. She smiled and called out as well. Then, she flew towards Wang Xian. What is little brother daddy? Wang Xian was slightly stunned when he heard them calling him daddy. His face turned slightly black as he extended his arms. At the same time, he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. What's wrong? Isn't it right? Ichin, you said that we were picked up from the ground. Furthermore, we were older than you. Although you raised us up, we are still little brothers. Hua Er revealed a smug smile when she saw Wang Xian being defeated. She pounced on him directly. That's right. It's good that both of you are fine. However, I think we should just forget about the word little brother. Wang Xian rubbed her head helplessly as the corner of his mouth twitched. It's our fault for leaving without saying goodbye back then. It made little brother and father worried. Kaia held onto Wang Xian's arm and said apologetically. It's fine. I didn't expect both of you girls to have grown up. Wang Xian revealed a gratified look as he caressed their heads. The flowers rubbed against him with a look of dependence. Damn, what's going on? The annual prehistoric drama? Those two girls are the Dragon King's daughters? This is simply... When everyone who was paying attention to the situation saw this, they were stunned. The two goddesses that Shui Xiaoyuan and the others had asked for help from, and the two goddesses that had sent the crab flying with one move, were actually the Dragon King's daughters. Who would have thought of this? Who would dare to think of this? Even the writers and novelists did not dare to write this. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia were completely dumbfounded. These two goddesses were actually the daughters of the Dragon King. The two of them still wanted to rely on them to kill the Dragon King. Could it be that they wanted the daughter of the Dragon King to kill the Dragon King now? Huar and Kaia frowned slightly when they heard the voices of Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia behind them. How do you two girls know them? Wang Xian looked at the shocked Shui Xiaoyuan and asked Huar with a slight frown. We are not familiar with them. We don't even know their names. Why did our little brother, Daddy, bring people to kill them? Huar looked at Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia and raised her head to look at Wang Xian. They killed Xiao Ran. Wang Xian stared at them coldly and said, What? They actually killed Xiao Ran? Huar Kaia was stunned for a moment. An angry expression appeared on her face. Xiao Ran was her father's disciple, so they naturally knew about it. However, they did not expect that they would actually be killed by these two people. I told you that these two are not good people. Chimich, kill them and avenge Xiao Ran. Huar's face was full of anger as she spoke, and the star grass above her head bloomed with a cold luster. No. How could this be? When Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia heard Huar's words, their faces were completely flustered. The last life-saving straw turned out to be the Dragon King's daughter. And they had killed the Dragon King's disciple. Now that the last straw was known, they wanted to kill them. Their faces were full of fear. Destroy them! Ao Chitian roared and said to Ao Crab, Kaka, eat them. Ao Crab stared at the divine kingdom behind them with dark eyes. Humph, scoundrel. Hua also looked at them. The star grass above their heads flashed slightly and directly attacked them. No, no, don't kill us. Seeing this scene, the two people showed despair on their faces. They roared and fled into the distance. In just an instant, two star grass landed on their bodies, causing them to vomit blood violently. A metal rod that was entangled by chains and a huge pincer landed directly on their bodies. Wang Xian waved his arm. Before they could react, he used the soul-absorbing power. Rumble! The heavens and earth cried out in grief. The gods had fallen. Moreover, this time, two gods had fallen. The Dragon King's anger will not be appeased so easily. Earth shaking. Ao Crab's dark pupils stared downwards. 2 pincers and 8 claws unfurled. A terrifying earth attribute energy condensed on his body. Rumble. Below him, a radius of 50 kilometers covered the entire Yellow Mountain. Violent tremors began. The earth began to rise and fall. No, no, I can't fly. I can't fly. Save me. Don't kill us. Don't kill us. Below the Yellow Mountain, the people of the True Spirit cult had shocked expressions on their faces as they begged for mercy in fear. Just a moment ago, they had been roaring with excitement to kill the Dragon King, but at this moment, they only hoped to spare their lives. Boom, boom, boom. Mountain peaks began to collapse one after another, collapsing into the surroundings. The gods had fallen, the divine mountains had collapsed, and the sects had been destroyed. The tremors only lasted for a few dozen seconds before the area below was completely razed to the ground. The Yellow Mountain, one of the divine mountains, had completely disappeared after that. Let's go! Wang Xian put away the fire and water elemental divine kingdoms. He looked at Hua Er and Kai Er before he waved his arm and teleported away. The rest of the members of the Dragon Palace followed closely behind and teleported away. What was left behind was a piece of land that had been razed to the ground. The mournful cries of heaven and earth reverberated in the entire sky. Everyone who was watching the scene gasped in unison. 2 gods had fallen just like that. They had completely perished. This time, they didn't even have the chance to resurrect. Looking at the ground that had been completely flattened, some of the experts' eyes shone. At this moment, everyone truly recognized the Dragon King's experts. Especially when they knew that the 2 goddesses were the Dragon King's daughters. They knew that another extremely powerful force had risen. A force owned by an earthling. Even if the Dragon King hadn't ignited the divine fire yet, his 2 extremely powerful divine realm subordinates and his 2 daughters had the strength of a divine realm expert. Together, they had the terrifying strength of 5 divine realm experts. This strength was comparable to the pyramid of one of the 4 great forces. After today, the 4 great forces would become the 5 great forces. A force that belonged to the Dragon King. Chapter 1949. 1949. The world of 1949 was shaken. The 5th major power was born, the power of the Dragon King. The 2 most pretentious and miserable gods were born. When they learned that the Dragon King was coming to destroy them, they were pretentious and played chess, waiting for the arrival of the Dragon King. In the end, the 2 underlings of the Dragon King beat them into a daze and then asked the 2 goddesses for help. In the end, a huge mistake was made. The 2 goddesses were actually the daughter of the Dragon King. In the end, the daughter of the Dragon King joined forces with her underlings and directly destroyed the Yellow Mountain and Water God and the others. 2 gods fell and were killed by the Dragon King's subordinates. They were the 2 gods who knew how to show off the most and suffered the most. The entire divine mountain, Yellow Mountain, was razed to the ground by the Dragon King's subordinates. The fifth great power was born. The Dragon King is so terrifying. As expected of the Dragon King of our Earth. He's mighty and domineering. The former Dragon King has returned. When the news about Yellow Mountain was spread on the internet, the entire world was in an uproar. The Dragon King had 2 god-level subordinates and 2 god-level daughters. This was simply heaven-defying. Among the major forces that had descended, the pyramid strength was only so. No one had expected the Dragon King to have such power. And no one had expected the Yellow Mountain and Water God and the others to be so pretentious and miserable. The Water God must have been killed by the Dragon King. The Yaman God of the pyramid was also killed by the Dragon King. Now, 2 more gods have been killed by the Dragon King. The Dragon King has killed a total of 4 gods. How terrifying! The Dragon King is from Earth. When everyone wanted to ignite the godly fire, the Dragon King had already killed 4 gods. He has a terrifying power. I'm afraid that even the Lingxiao treasured palace wouldn't dare to rashly provoke the Dragon King. After all, there are 5 gods. With the death of 2 gods, very quickly, some people thought of the gods that had died under the Dragon King's hands. Countless people were discussing in shock. Especially the Earthlings now. When they saw how strong the Dragon King was, they were also inexplicably proud. This was an expert that belonged to their planet. He was no weaker than the gods that had descended. 5 gods. That Dragon King really hid himself well. At this moment, in the Hall of Gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace, a middle-aged man was looking at the information with a face full of surprise. I also didn't expect that 5 godly state experts. According to the battle at Huangshan, the Dragon King's subordinates and his 2 daughters would have the combat strength of 2 wisps of divine fire. Jin Feng also frowned slightly as he read the information in his hands, his heart trembling. He didn't pay attention to the battle in Huangshan. It wasn't that he didn't have time, but it was because he didn't put the Dragon King in his eyes. However, the Dragon King suddenly had 4 gods who were comparable to him, causing his heart to tremble slightly. He couldn't believe that a person from Earth could have such power. Shui Xiaoyuan and the others didn't leak anything about us, did they? The middle-aged man asked with a twinkle in his eyes. No, the 2 of them were killed directly. Jin Feng shook his head slowly. That's good. Even such a powerful force was born. It seems that our alliance with the Holy Church has to be accelerated. The middle-aged man murmured and frowned slightly. The appearance of the Dragon King and the power of the Dragon King was a big blow to all the gods and forces. Even their Lingxiao treasured palace had to take it seriously. He suddenly thought of the words his junior sister had said to him, "We can find the Dragon King to join forces." Although this person is not weak, he is still not worthy. The middle-aged man smiled and shook his head. The Dragon King has 5 godly state experts. In other places, after the godly state experts received this news, their eyes revealed a thoughtful expression. Even the true dragon sons of heaven had slightly solemn expressions as they planned what to do next. The entire world's gods became solemn because of the Dragon King. Xiao Ran is dead. No, impossible. This is impossible. In a courtyard of the Lingxiao Palace, Ji Lingfei was sitting under a tree in the courtyard. When she looked at the messages on the internet, her eyes were red as she shook her head. She looked at the messages in disbelief. Her arm was trembling as she quickly picked up her phone. She wanted to confirm that Xiao Ran was not dead. He was not dead. Everything on the internet was fake. She took out her phone and dialed Xiao Ran's number immediately. However, when she realized that her phone was switched off, she became even more flustered. It won't happen. She shook her head. She took out her phone and searched for Lu Mingxin's number in a fluster. Her body trembled as she pressed the call button. In Jiang City, in the office of the dean of Longmen College, Wang Xian brought Hua Erkaier here. It's Sister Ji Lingfei. All of a sudden, Lu Mingxin's phone rang from the side. She was slightly taken aback. She looked at Wang Xian and picked up the call. Mingxin, tell me, is Xiao Ran still alive? Everything on the internet is fake. The moment the call was picked up, Ji Lingfei's anxious voice was heard. Huh? Lu Mingxin was slightly stunned when she heard Ji Lingfei's anxious voice. Tell him that Xiao Ran is dead. Wang Xian heard the voice on the phone and looked at Lu Mingxin. He transmitted his voice to her. Lu Mingxin was slightly stunned. She raised her head and looked at Wang Xian in astonishment. She nodded her head. My brother is already. She took a deep breath and said to Ji Lingfei. However, before she could finish her sentence, the sound of her phone dropping was heard. Soon after, it was a busy tone. Teacher, why didn't you tell Sister Ji Lingfei? She seems to be worried now. Lu Mingxin asked Wang Xian in confusion. The person behind Xiao Ran's death was commanded by the god of the Lingxiao Palace. Wang Xian replied plainly. Before Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangsha died, he had read their memories through soul capture. When he received this news, Wang Xian was not too surprised. Everything was because of Ji Lingfei. What? Lu Mingxin was slightly stunned. Her eyes were wide open in disbelief. The Lingxiao Palace? Little brother daddy, they dared to kill Xiao Ran. Let's attack them and destroy the entire Lingxiao Palace. Huar said with a face full of anger. With our abilities, we aren't strong enough. Let's wait a little longer. There's no rush. This is Xiao Ran's own matter. Let's wait until he wakes up completely before we talk about it. Wang Xian said faintly and glared at her. Also, call him daddy from now on. Don't call him little brother or daddy. What kind of address is that? Just don't. Huar stared at Wang Xian fearlessly. Who asked you to give us the name of Wang Huar and Wang Kaier? It's so outdated. Wang Xian rubbed her head speechlessly and looked at Lu Mingxin. Don't tell anyone about Xiao Ran's resurrection for the time being. We will go home and you will take care of Xiao Ran. Yes, teacher. Wang Xian waved his arm and teleported to the villa. He had gained a pretty good harvest from killing 2 immortals this time. Chapter 1950. 1950 was a terrifying upgrade. Dragon King. Little Princess. At the top of the villa, when Wang Xian arrived with Huar Kai, the leaders of the Dragon Palace immediately called out respectfully. The Dragon Palace has absorbed the corpses of 2 godly state experts. At least 2 more godly state experts will be added. Ao Jian, call them over later. Wang Xian waved at them and sat at the side. It's the Dragon King. Ao Jian nodded. Oh right, Ao Yao and Qitian, which one of you is about to ignite the godly fire? Wang Xian looked at the 2 of them and asked. Dragon King, Ao Yao is faster than me. Ao Qitian replied. Yes. Wang Xian nodded slightly. Dragon King, can I devour the Water God Kingdom? After devouring the Divine Kingdom, I can ignite 2 wisps of godly fire. At this moment, Ao Crab, who was standing at the side, suddenly said. Oh, so fast? Wang Xian's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. Yes, Dragon King. My upgrade is different from Ao Yao and the rest. I can devour the Divine Kingdoms to upgrade my level. Moreover, the level of the Water God's Divine Kingdom is not bad. After I devour it, I can ignite the 2nd wisp of Divine Fire. My subordinates can also upgrade their level. Ao Crab said with a smile. Brother, father, Uncle Ao Crab is similar to Yaoxia. When I first saw him, I thought he was Yaoxia. Kaier heard Ao Crab's words and said with a smile. Yaoxia? You can directly devour the Divine Kingdom of the Water God to upgrade your level. Ao Yao, how's the investigation of the ancient lands of darkness going these 2 days? Wang Xian nodded and asked Ao Yao. Dragon King, there are many powerful demonic beasts in each of the other 10 ancient lands of darkness. Even I am afraid of the strongest one. However, there are 8 ancient lands of darkness that we can deal with. Ao Yao reported. Get ready. Attack those ancient lands of darkness. Ao Crab, Devour more divine kingdoms of darkness. Aren't you improving faster? Wang Xian looked at him. Yes, Dragon King. The quality of those dark divine kingdoms and dark nests are very high. If I can devour 7 or 8 of them, or even more than 10 of them, my strength will be able to improve rapidly. I can even reach 4 wisps of divine flames, 5 wisps of divine flames, or even higher. Ao Crab said respectfully. In that case, I will use my clone to attack one ancient land after another with you guys tonight. Wang Xian shot out a powerful glow. If the Dragon Palace was powerful enough, he could directly attack the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and crush Xiao Ran. Yes. The members of the Dragon Palace immediately nodded respectfully. Ah, little daddy, is this your doppelganger? It's exactly the same as you. Hua Er noticed the doppelganger at the side and walked over with a curious expression. Hee, behave yourself. What do you want to eat? Daddy will get it for you. The doppelganger stroked her head and said with a smile. They are exactly the same. Wow, this is amazing. Hua's eyes lit up as she touched the doppelganger's body. Wang Xian opened it and held his hand. There is no difference between a doppelganger and a real body. A doppelganger can also be considered a real body. Hee hee. Hua smiled and held Wang Xian's hand as they walked downstairs. It had been a long time since they last saw each other at night. The 2 little girls had been lingering around Wang Xian all this while. Although the 2 little girls had grown up a lot, they were still as clingy and playful as when they were young. In the ancient land of darkness, which was the closest to Jiang City, Wang Xian used his clone to lead a group of disciples of the Dragon Palace to fly into an ancient land of darkness. Next, it was time for the members of the Dragon Palace to improve rapidly. Once the ancient lands of darkness were taken down one by one, the strength of the Dragon Palace would undergo an earth-shaking change. Night slowly descended. The internet was still abuzz with all sorts of topics. There were countless posts regarding the strength and influence of the Dragon King. During this period of Earth's mutation, the Dragon King first killed the god of the pyramids and rose up. After that, the gods ignited the divine fire and lifted up the divine kingdom. The true dragon son of heaven, Long Shao of the 9 heavens. The brilliance of the Dragon King was completely concealed. Today, everyone once again felt the might of the Dragon King. As the gods were preparing for the next development and countless people were discussing various topics, figures slowly appeared in a dark ancient land. Kill. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings and ordered in a low voice. Buzz buzz buzz. The group of leaders of the Dragon Palace were all god-level powerhouses. They followed closely behind and charged into the divine kingdom of darkness. Currently, this avatar of Wang Xian possessed the strength of 3 wisps of divine fire. Ao Xingmu and Ao Crab also possessed the strength of 3 wisps of divine fire. This strength was absolutely terrifying. Even the gods of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace had to tread carefully into the ancient land of darkness. Wang Xian and the rest did not have the slightest scruple. Before this, Ao Yao had already investigated the group of ancient land of darkness. Ao Yao was currently at the peak of the demigod realm. He could assassinate the gods of 2 wisps of divine fire. With his ability to conceal himself in light and darkness, only the gods of 5 or 6 wisps of divine fire could discover him. At present, even the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church didn't have as much understanding of the ancient land of darkness as Wang Xian and the rest. This was also the reason why the Lingxiao Treasured Palace didn't attack and destroy the divine kingdom of darkness consecutively. This was because they wanted to understand the strength of a divine kingdom of darkness. They had to send a god-level powerhouse to scout it out. If they encountered 4 or 5 wisps of divine fire, they might not be able to get out. They would have to pay a huge price to investigate every dark ancient land. Boom, boom. Soon, rumbling sounds could be heard from the dark ancient land. However, due to the fact that they were in the divine kingdom, they did not hear any sounds from the outside world. An hour later, the dark ancient land slowly disappeared. Wang Xian and the rest appeared in the middle. Continue next. Wang Xian waved his arm and the rest disappeared. Time passed slowly. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. However, many things happened during these 5 days. Firstly, the sudden disappearance of the 7 ancient lands of darkness caused a huge sensation. When the ancient lands of darkness appeared, it shook the entire world. Countless evil spirits rushed out from within. If it wasn't for the appearance of the divine mountain and the rise of the 9 dragons, the entire human race would have been destroyed. However, the disappearance of the 7 ancient lands of darkness caused a huge commotion. Secondly, within these 5 days, 3 true dragon sons of heaven had joined forces and formed the True Dragon Gathering. The components of the True Dragon Gathering instantly caused the entire world to boil. Everyone had seen how powerful the true dragon sons of heaven were. However, how terrifying would the power of the 3 true dragon sons of heaven be when they formed the True Dragon Gathering? The third shocking news was that the pyramid faction had been destroyed by a group of demonic gods led by the Son of Heaven. This was far more exciting than the Dragon King destroying 2 gods. Chapter 1951. 1951. Under the terrifying rise of 1951. The wind rose and the clouds surged, the world changed. The gods fell, and the divine kingdom rose high. In just a few days, major events shook everyone. Some gods fell, and some people ignited the divine fire. Even one of the 4 major forces, the pyramid, was destroyed. This made the gods in the Lingxiao treasured palace, the sacred hall, and the fire god palace extremely solemn. Things had exceeded their expectations one by one. You were once a heaven's favorite, so why not ride the wind and ascend to the 9th heaven? The skyscraping hall would descend to earth, and the heavenly court would open wide to recruit disciples. Those who entered the heavenly court would be placed on the God Ascension list, and everyone would be able to become a god. The skyscraping hall would also lose its previous invincible appearance. Back then, when the sacred hall was enveloped, divine light descended, and the light of the God of Light enveloped everyone. The Holy Church had recruited a wide range of disciples. Those who joined the Holy Church would gain eternal life and lose the divine light of the past. With the establishment of the True Dragon Association and the demonic aura of the demonic dragon Son of Heaven, the Holy Church of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace had completely lost their control over the entire earth. Little brother daddy, I'm thirsty. I want to drink some water. Everything was extremely harmonious in the villa by the sea in Jiang City. 2 carefree little girls were sitting in front of the computer playing games. Huar shouted at Wang Xian. Huar, you little girl, are you treating daddy like a nanny? Wang Xian waved his arms speechlessly and threw the drinks that Ao Jian and the rest brought from the supernatural continent in front of the little girl. Hee, you asked us to call you daddy. In daddy's case, we are not even 1 year old yet. We are still a baby. If you can't see a 1-year-old baby, which one of us is not daddy taking good care of? Huar was making some twisted logic. She squinted her eyes and said happily. A baby as big as you? Wang Xian said speechlessly. Anyway, I don't care. If you ask us to call you daddy, then we are not even a year old. Huar said with a smile. Suddenly she shouted, I'm dead. Focus on the game. Kair, who was at the side, glanced at her and said unhappily. Dragon King. At this moment, Ao Jian and the rest's voices were heard. They're here. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly and appeared in the sky above the villa. Daddy, don't forget the delicious food that the uncles said they would bring for us. Huar's voice was heard in the room. Dragon King. When everyone saw Wang Xian, they immediately called out respectfully again. Wang Xian's smiling eyes swept across all of them. Ao Jian, Ao Yao, Ao Chicken, Ao Qi, Ao Xingmu, Ao Crab, Mao Zisen, Ao Fenghuang, Ba Qi, Mo Sha, Prime Minister Turtle, Ao Saturn, a member of the Saturn Turtle Demonic Beast Clan, and the 12 leaders of the Dragon Palace. All of them had ignited the divine fire. Behind them, There were 9 slender figures with 2 horns on their heads and green dragon robes. They were similar to the 4 Seas Dragon King in Journey to the West. 9 dragons. These 9 dragons possessed the strength of half of their bodies. They had the strength to kill a wisp of divine fire god. This was the entire strength of the Dragon Palace. This was also the resources that Wang Xian and the rest had obtained after destroying the 7 ancient lands of darkness. This was the improvement of the members of the Dragon Palace. It was a complete qualitative change. Out of the 7 ancient lands of darkness, more than 30 godly state demons had died at their hands. Godly demons could not be devoured by Wang Xian, and they did not have any elixirs, herbs, or other resources. This also allowed Wang Xian's strength to remain at the 9th level of the demigod realm. Currently, his strength was not the strongest in the Dragon Palace. The strongest one was Ao Crab. Now, he had ignited 5 wisps of divine fire. What kind of concept was this? After his body size recovered, he had reached the size of 20,000 meters. According to Ao Crab, if he was given 10 minutes, he would be able to destroy the former Earth. This was the strength of Ao Crab. His improvement was insane, and it made one's hair stand on end. It only took him 5 days to go from 2 wisps of divine fire to 5 wisps of divine fire. The current Ao Crab was almost invincible on Earth. Even the soaring heavens palace might not have such a powerful existence. After all, an Ao Crab with 5 wisps of divine fire could kill a god with 6 wisps of divine fire. Of course, Wang Xian knew that Ao Crab was not invincible. This was because in a dark ancient land, there were demons that could rival 6 wisps of divine fire. 21 subordinates with the combat strength of the godly state. This was the terrifying strength of the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian swept his gaze across them one by one. A satisfied expression appeared on his face. Hunting is indeed the fastest speed for the Dragon Palace to improve. He thought to himself. Next, it was time to improve his own strength. If he wanted to improve his own strength, he would have to set his sights on the gods. The first place is the soaring heavens palace. Wang Xian squinted his eyes slightly. There was a cold glint in his eyes. Dragon King, I feel that with our current strength, we can totally move the Dragon Palace to Earth. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui suggested to Wang Xian. Wait a little longer. Wait until the level of the Dragon Palace is raised. Wang Xian shook his head slowly. Currently, we are still lacking the wood attribute, lightning attribute, and light attribute. However, we should be able to raise the level of the Dragon Palace very soon. Prime Minister Gui nodded his head slightly. All of you should find a place to rest first and make some preparations. Wang Xian said to them. It's the Dragon King. The members of the Dragon Palace nodded their heads respectfully. With a move of their bodies, they disappeared instantly. It's about time to bury all the gods in the heavens. Wang Xian revealed a smile on his face. Master! At this moment, a voice sounded from outside. You're awake. When Wang Xian heard this voice, a smile appeared on his face as he said faintly. Thank you, Master, for your kindness. Xiao Ran walked in and knelt on the ground respectfully as he spoke to Wang Xian gratefully. This time, if it wasn't for his master, he would have died completely. He was filled with respect and gratitude towards his master for being able to cut off his head and bring him back to life. I've told you some of my dreams. What are you going to do? Wang Xian lifted Xiao Ran up with his arm and asked him. Master, concubine Ling definitely doesn't know about this. She might. Xiao Ran's expression was a little ugly. He clenched his fists tightly and said, I want to cultivate properly first. After I ignite the divine fire, I will step into the Ling Xiao Palace. Take it. Ignite the divine fire as soon as possible. Wang Xian walked over and patted Xiao Ran's shoulder. When the time comes, I will ask Ao Qitian and the rest to accompany you and crush the soaring heavens. Thank you, Master. It's my disciple who is useless. Xiao Ran lowered his head slightly and said with a trembling body. It's not that you are useless. It's because this is not your era. However, I will bring you into this era. Wang Xian said with a smile. Go back. We can talk about it later. Wang Xian waved his hand at him. Xiao Ran bowed and retreated with slightly red eyes. Crushing Ling Xiao was not stepping on Ling Xiao. It was not your era. I can bring you into this era. Huh. Just as Xiao Ran left, Wang Xian was slightly shocked. He looked towards the south. Chapter 1952. 1952 on the Tomb of the Eternal God. At this moment, all the land on earth had become one. Even the North and South poles were connected to the land. The rest of the land was the ocean. However, at this moment, in the south, where the South Pole used to be. In the South Pole, after the heaven and earth changed, the glaciers expanded and the ice layer thickened. Icebergs that were thousands of meters tall shone under the sunlight. All of a sudden, the gigantic icebergs collapsed slowly. The ice layer that was more than 10 meters thick gradually cracked open. The entire South Pole had completely collapsed. An extremely terrifying energy was transmitted from below. Wang Xian stood at the top of the villa and stared in the direction of the South Pole with a solemn expression. His eyes were filled with shock. This power was too terrifying. It was definitely not the power of a godly state. His body moved and he flew to a height of more than 100,000 meters. The dragon eyes of the 5 elements of Yin and Yang looked in the direction of the South Pole. The celestial burial of the Divine Lord, the protection of the Divine Kingdom. The eternal cemetery, the worship of all living beings. A memorial. At this moment, an incomparably vast voice seemed to come from ancient times. It reverberated throughout the entire earth. A solemn atmosphere slowly spread throughout the entire earth. At this moment, everyone was slightly shocked, and a sense of solemnity and oppression surged in their hearts. Everyone looked in the direction of the South Pole. God Lord's heaven burial, eternal cemetery. When this voice spread throughout the entire earth, the gods revealed expressions of shock. They all flew towards the sky, and their bodies were filled with excitement as they looked towards the South Pole. The tomb of the God Lord, the eternal God Lord's divine kingdom. The eyes of all the gods revealed an extremely heated expression. Eternal God Lord, this was the tomb of the eternal God Lord. The position of God was eternal, and the eternal God Lord suppressed a region. If a god could roam the universe, then the eternal God Lord could suppress a region of stars, and he was definitely a star realm expert. In the battle hundreds of thousands of years ago, 8 eternal God Lords died. Some of the eternal God Lord's divine kingdoms were completely destroyed, but some of the eternal God Lord's divine kingdoms took his body and turned it into an eternal tomb. The gods who had participated in that battle murmured as they looked at the South Pole. After reaching the eternal God Lord realm, even if he died completely, his divine kingdom still had a bit of consciousness. He put his body into his divine kingdom and turned it into a divine tomb. In the universe, the eternal God Lord's divine tomb was definitely a treasure land that countless people fought over. The resources within the divine tomb were definitely not something that a god could compare to. Let's go, we'll head over immediately. At this moment, all the gods didn't hesitate too much and directly flew towards the South Pole. Facing such a treasure, no god could not be moved. This was a treasure land that could make them go crazy. Even if they knew that there might be great danger in the god tomb, it was still worth their risk. Oh my God, an incomparably vast ancient land has appeared at the South Pole. It is larger than all the ancient lands, almost covering the entire South Pole. What is this situation? Did Earth mutate again? Many gods are flying over there. Could it be that a great opportunity has arrived? Hiss, what kind of existence would be able to produce such a vast voice? That place is definitely a huge treasure ground. At this moment, on the internet, everyone was in an uproar. The South Pole mutating, the vast voice, and the arrival of the gods all indicated that this was a vast ancient land. Moreover, this ancient land might be even more precious than the ancient lands of the pasts. Master God. The disciples who followed the gods to descend trembled. They had come to earth to pursue the divine path and ignite the divine fire. Now they could actually meet the tomb of the Master God. As long as they could obtain opportunities in the tomb, they could almost increase 90% of their strength to the God realm. The power of the Master God was not something that the gods could predict. In the universe, every Master of God could easily control more than a dozen planets. There were more than 100, or even a few hundred godly state subordinates, or even more. Little brother daddy. Just when Wang Xian was looking at the South Pole in astonishment, a voice was suddenly heard. Huarkaya. Wang Xian looked at them and rubbed their heads. What an ugly name. Huar pouted unhappily when she heard his name. She also looked in the direction of the South Pole. That should be the tomb of the god of wings of light. I didn't expect it to appear. Kair looked at the South Pole and muttered. God of wings of light? An existence on the level of the eternal God? Wang Xian looked at the two girls and asked. Yes, the god of light wings is the god of light wings divine tiger clan. Back then, he was the main force to kill Yaoxia. In the end, the god of light wings perished together with a powerful Yaoxia. At that time, the god of light wings seemed to have perished completely. There was no possibility of him reviving. There should be many treasures in his divine kingdom. There should be the existence of the god of light wings divine tiger. Kai Er nodded her head and looked at Wang Xian. Brother and father, let's go over as well. The treasures there can create at least a dozen godly state experts. Perhaps you can ignite the godly fire there. At least a dozen godly state experts? Wang Xian was filled with interest. Since that's the case, let's go over. Gather the disciples of the Dragon Palace. With a thought, his voice was heard by the experts of the Dragon Palace. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Soon, in less than 5 seconds, figures appeared in front of Wang Xian. Boom, boom, boom. Just as Wang Xian was about to lead them toward the South Pole, a rumbling sound was heard from the North Pole. The celestial burial of the Lord of the Gods, the protection of the divine kingdom. The eternal tomb, the worship of all beings. A memorial service. Following that, another loud voice sounded. This stunned Wang Xian slightly. There's one more. Hua Erkair was also slightly shocked. She quickly looked towards the North Pole. 2 tombs of the Lord of the Gods have appeared in succession. This is a great opportunity for the entire Earth. The 2 little girls were also looking in the direction of the North Pole in shock. Wang Xian's eyes also flashed with a hint of surprise. He had a thought and his clone appeared at the side. Let's split up. Wang Xian said to all the members of the Dragon Palace. It's the Dragon King. All the members of the Dragon Palace nodded their heads. Little girls, let's head to the South Pole. Wang Xian looked at Huar and the rest. He brought Ao Yao Yao, Ao Jian, and Ao Qitian, the 10 members of the Dragon Palace, and flew toward the South Pole. Ao Crab, on the other hand, led the 9 flood dragons and flew toward the North Pole. The appearance of the tomb of the Eternal Lord had completely disrupted some of Wang Xian's plans. However, this might also be a huge opportunity for them. Chapter 1953. 1953. In 1953, beneath the tomb of the Eternal God, the tombs of the 2 great god lords appeared one after another. Not to mention Wang Xian, even the Ling Shao treasured palace and the Holy Church were filled with shocks. Other than the gods, everyone on earth was also flying towards the tombs of the 2 great god lords in a frenzy. If one could obtain a great opportunity in the tomb of the Eternal God Lord, he could definitely overtake them. For the people on earth, for the disciples who had followed the gods to descend, wanting to surpass the gods who had been resurrected and the gods from the major factions, this might be the only chance they had at the moment. Once they could obtain a great opportunity in the tomb of the Eternal God, they would have the ability to contend with the resurrected gods and the gods from the major factions. He would be able to overtake them in a roundabout way. Such an opportunity made countless people go crazy. At least hundreds of millions of people flew towards the tomb of the Master of God, hoping to obtain an opportunity in there. Wang Xian and the rest were very fast. When they got closer, they saw an incomparably huge divine kingdom of light in front of them. The huge and incomparably vast divine kingdom of light was completely incomparable to the current Dragon Palace. This divine kingdom that was completely enveloped by the divine radiance of light was emitting an extremely dense power of light. In the sky, the light condensed into the images of divine tigers, causing clouds and rain in the sky. It was wholly majestic and majestic. Everyone who came here could feel a faint pressure. Wang Xian looked at the divine kingdom that occupied an area of at least 5,000 kilometers. His eyes were filled with shock. The interior of the divine kingdom was an incomparably huge paradise. Mountains, rivers, water, and the lair of the divine tigers. There were all sorts of majestic and magnificent things. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, a rumbling sound came from the sky in front of them. Wang Xian and the rest looked over and immediately saw a god trying to enter the divine tomb in the sky. In the end, the divine tigers of light condensed in the sky above the divine kingdom and attacked the god directly. Just one attack from the divine tigers was enough to shock the god. He quickly hid in the distance and didn't dare to enter recklessly. Not everyone can disturb the tomb of the Master of God. These divine tigers condensed from the light attribute are the guardian beasts of the tomb of God. Kair's voice rang out. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings and realized that there were more than 20 figures in the surroundings. Each figure came from the Lingshao treasured palace, the holy church, and some of the true dragon sons of heaven who had been resurrected. They were the first to arrive. However, it was obvious that under the current situation, no one had entered the tomb of the Master of God yet. The deities frowned slightly as they scanned their surroundings. Some of them tried but couldn't find any solutions. In the end, the deities arrived at the entrance of the kingdom of God one by one. Among the deities present, they weren't strong enough to resist the residual power of the Eternal Lord. If they wanted to enter, they could only do so from the entrance. "Let's go," Wang Xian said to Huar Kair and flew towards the entrance as well. There were 2 sculptures of divine winged tigers made of divine grade materials at the entire entrance. They were lying on both sides of the entrance. The 2 divine winged tigers exuded a divine aura as though they were alive. Their bodies were about 3,000 meters in size. As they lay there, they exuded a terrifying energy. The entire entrance was 10,000 meters long. They needed to walk up 10,000 steps before they could truly step into the tomb of the Master God. If we enter, will the 2 statues attack? A group of dozens of people stood around. At the Ling Shao treasured palace, a god frowned slightly as he looked at the entrance. Facing the 2 heart-palpitating statues, they didn't dare to charge in recklessly. I don't know. The pressure brought by the 2 sculptures is too strong. I feel that the might of the god is comparable to 6 to 7 wisps of divine fire. An old man beside him shook his head slowly. His face was also filled with solemnity. The arrival of Wang Xian and the rest caused some people to glance over. Then, they shifted their gaze to the tomb of the Master of God. "Dragon King, do you want me to go in and investigate?" Wang Xian and the rest stood there as Ao Yao's voice was heard. "Don't take any risks for now. After all, this is the tomb of the eternal Master of God." Wang Xian shook his head slowly. The tombs of the eternal Master of God that appear in the universe are all different. Some of them are filled with killing intent. It is basically a land of death. Those who are weak will most likely die if they enter. However, even those tombs that are not very dangerous are filled with danger. After all, every fallen Master of God does not wish for anyone to disturb his bones. They don't want to be desecrated after they die. Kai said from the side. She looked at the divine tomb and frowned slightly. "Let's wait here." There will always be people who can't help it. Wang Xian said faintly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Not long after, figures flew over quickly. Greetings, gods. The hundreds of figures looked at the gods of the Lingshao treasured palace and immediately bowed respectfully. The gods of the Lingshao treasured palace slowly nodded. Around them, some gods raised their eyebrows slightly when they saw the demigods. Their eyes were shining. Let me test it out. At this moment, a god couldn't help but walk forward. With a wave of his arm, a puppet appeared in front of him. The puppet raised its head and looked at the stairs at the entrance. It quickly rushed over. 1. However, when the puppet stepped on the stairs, a beam of light energy landed on it and wiped it away. Seeing this scene, all the gods around frowned slightly. The surroundings fell silent once more. The tomb of the eternal God is in front of us. My God, it's simply too spectacular. Hiss, a tomb is actually so terrifying. What kind of existence is this? It's simply too powerful. As time slowly passed, more and more people rushed over. What is that? The gods haven't entered yet. If only I could obtain the inheritance of the God Lord here, how great would that be? More and more people gathered around, and very quickly, there were more than 100,000 people. Their arrival made the surroundings livelier. They sized up the divine tombs in front of them and looked at the powerful gods around them as they discussed in low voices. However, at this moment at the North Pole, Wang Xian's clone led Prime Minister Ao Crab Turtle and the 9 flood dragons to the North Pole. In front of them were numerous gigantic divine mountains. Each divine mountain exuded an incomparably vast divine might. Similar to the South Pole, there were already more than 100,000 people gathered around, but no one had entered the divine mountains. Everyone was looking for a way. The Lingshao treasured palace and the sacred hall have gone to the South Pole. Coincidentally, we have reserved the divine tombs here at the North Pole. At this moment, an extremely domineering voice suddenly enveloped the surroundings. Chapter 1954. 1954 Chaos in 1954. Huh? Who is it? Who is so arrogant to want to take over this divine tomb? In front of the divine tomb of the divine mountain in the North Pole, everyone frowned slightly when they heard this voice. They looked around in astonishment. Wang Xian, Ao He, and the rest were standing beside the entrance. His entire body was enveloped by green energy. He had revealed himself in the South Pole. In the North Pole, he naturally had to conceal himself a little. The current Wang Xian could not guarantee that the Dragon Palace was absolutely invincible. This was especially so after the birth of the tomb of the Eternal Lord. Ao Crab had the appearance of a middle-aged brawny man. He had ignited 5 wisps of divine fire. When he transformed into his human form, he could completely eliminate the 8 arms. He looked no different from a human. Wang Xian also swept his gaze across the surroundings. When he saw the 8 people flying over, he narrowed his eyes slightly. 8 fiery red figures. Their bodies contained a terrifying power of fire. They were like an enormous volcano. When the 8 flew over, everyone felt a wave of heat coming toward them. The throne of the Fire God Palace is the gods of the Fire God Palace. The gods rushed to the South Pole as soon as the tomb appeared. I didn't expect that the throne of the Fire God Palace didn't go to the South Pole. The hundreds of thousands of people around were shocked and looked at the gods flying toward the Fire God Palace. All of you, stand down. 8 figures were floating in the sky. They looked at the tomb of the Eternal God Lord in front of them, and their eyes were burning with fervor. Standing in the center, Flintstone swept his gaze over the hundreds of thousands of people below him. His terrifying aura trembled, and a fire palace appeared behind him. Walala! Figures stepped out of the Divine Kingdom Palace. They held fire weapons in their hands, and their bodies were exuding violent power. Very quickly, tens of thousands of Fire God Palace's disciples floated in the sky. What are they doing? Are they clearing the area? Not good, the Fire God Palace's throne wants to completely occupy this place and not allow anyone else to enter. When everyone saw the Fire God Palace's throne move, their expressions instantly turned ugly. They looked at it in horror. Courting death. A god from the Fire God Palace saw that everyone below was unmoved. He waved his arm. A terrifying flame directly covered the area below. No, no, run, run. When everyone saw that the gods from the Fire God Palace were truly attacking, their faces filled with shock. They hurriedly fled into the distance. However, it was impossible for them to dodge the attack of a god with their strength. Everyone who was in front of the god's tomb was instantly covered in flames. Ah! Screams of pain rang out instantly. Tens of thousands of people were buried in the sea of flames. Those who were far away saw this scene and fled into the distance in fear. Wang Xian and the rest stood at the bottom. Their bodies were shrouded in light and the flames that landed on them automatically disappeared. He looked at everyone in the throne room of the God of Fire with a cold look in his eyes. Hee, the people in the throne room of the God of Fire are really overbearing. At this moment, a cold voice came from the left. Ha! The 8 gods in the throne room of the God of Fire raised their eyebrows slightly and looked over. 3 figures in dragon robes, flew over. Their faces were filled with indifference as they stared at the people in the Fire God Palace. True Dragon Gathering. The 8 gods in the Fire God Palace immediately frowned when they saw the 3 of them. Sui Xinhua stared at the 3 of them with some seriousness. The Eternal God Lord's Divine Tomb. The 3 youths dressed in dragon robes turned their heads and ignored the people in the Fire God Palace. With their abilities, they were not afraid of the throne of the God of Fire. Suddenly, when the young man saw the sea of fire below, he was slightly surprised to see Wang Xian and the rest standing there. There are people there. The 8 gods in the throne of the God of Fire also noticed Wang Xian and the rest in the sea of fire and frowned again. People from the throne of the God of Fire, you better get out of here. Wang Xian swept his gaze across the 8 gods in the throne of the God of Fire and said faintly, "Let us get out." The 8 gods in the throne of the God of Fire narrowed their eyes slightly and sized up Wang Xian and the rest. "If you don't get out, you'll die." He looked at them with a hint of killing intent in his eyes. He waved his arm and an incomparably huge earth mountain instantly appeared in the sky. The earth mountain covered an area of 50 kilometers and was 5 to 6 kilometers tall. The incomparably huge earth mountain directly pressed down on everyone in the Fire God Palace. What? At this moment, the expressions of everyone in the Fire God Palace changed dramatically. The pupils of the 8 gods contracted slightly as they felt the terrifying pressure coming from the earth mountain. Their expressions changed drastically. The Fire God Palace has met an expert. Why are they so terrifying? The expressions of the 3 youths from the sacred True Dragon Gathering also changed. Even when they were facing the 8 gods from the Fire God Palace, they didn't change like this. There's a mysterious expert in front of the God Tomb. With a wave of his hand, he can destroy the heavens and earth. How terrifying! Everyone in the distance saw this sudden scene and their faces were filled with fear. The sudden arrival of the Fire God Palace's throne and its overbearing attack wanted to occupy this place. However, the 3 True Dragon Emperor of the sacred True Dragon Gathering had arrived and a terrifying mysterious force had appeared. Someone has entered the divine tomb. Someone has entered. Just as the terrifying earth mountain was heading towards everyone in the Fire God Palace, a shocked voice rang out all of a sudden. Everyone looked towards the entrance of the divine tomb. Wang Xian and the rest also looked over. They saw that at the entrance of the divine mountain, the mountain gate that was originally formed from 2 gigantic divine peaks was slowly revealing a crack. The 2 figures ran as fast as they could. "Oh, it's so easy to enter the divine tomb here?" A hint of surprise flashed across Wang Xian's eyes. Boom! Oh no, escape! However, at this very moment, A godly state expert from the palace of the god of fire raised his arm to defend against the earth mountain. His arm was instantly shattered. He shouted with a face full of horror. "Quick, take out the fire god mountain." Sui Xinhua shouted at an old man as he sensed the earth mountain coming from above. The old man roared, and a godly weapon that was emitting flames flew toward the earth mountain to block it. The gods of the fire god palace hurriedly fled into the distance. At this moment, they didn't care about the godly tomb. What a powerful divine artifact. However, do you think you can escape with just your strength? He looked at them and prepared to give chase. Wait, the mountain gate of the divine tomb is closing. Let's go in first. As for them, we can kill them at any time. At this moment, Wang Xian looked at the mountain gate of the divine tomb and said to he immediately. Yes. You bunch of ants. If I meet you again, I will definitely kill you all. Crab swept his eyes over the people in the palace of the fire god, roared in disdain, and flew into the divine tomb. Chapter 1955. 1955. You guys go and scout the way. Otherwise, you will die. Let's go in. In the tomb of the gods in the North Pole, Wang Xian and the rest flew straight in. Hiss. In the surrounding area, everyone was shocked when they saw this scene. That mysterious middle-aged man was able to make the 8 gods in the palace of the god of fire fight back with their full strength with one move. Furthermore, one of the gods was severely injured. This shocked everyone. How could there be such a terrifying existence on Earth? This was the fire god palace, and there were 8 gods. What powerful strength! The 3 true dragon sons of heaven from the sacred true dragon gathering also had solemn expressions on their faces. They looked at each other, filled with shock. Enter! One of the youths looked at the mountain gate of the god tomb and gritted his teeth as he spoke. Let's go! The other 2 hesitated for a second and flew over quickly. Let's go in too. Let's go in too. Quick, quick, the entrance of the divine tomb is about to close. If we can obtain an opportunity, we can also become gods. When they saw Wang Xian and the true dragon union entering, everyone around them rushed in frantically. The desire to become gods was enough to make them throw away their lives. In an instant, tens of thousands of people in the surroundings rushed in. Only a few people who had just arrived looked at their surroundings in astonishment. They looked at the gods and powerhouses in the palace of the god of fire in the sky. They were puzzled. How could it be? With such terrifying strength, he has ignited at least 5 wisps of divine fire. How could there be such a powerful existence on Earth? In the sky, the god whose arms had been instantly shattered slowly recovered. His face was filled with terror as he roared in a low voice. The expressions of the surrounding 7 gods of the sacred flame changed drastically. They were incomparably embarrassed. Let's go to the South Pole. The old man in the middle said with a gloomy face. The other gods nodded in embarrassment. They had originally thought that they could occupy the North Pole divine tomb, but they had never expected such a terrifying existence to suddenly appear. After hearing the other party's warning, how would they dare to enter? If they were to be met by that group of people again, they didn't dare to guarantee that the other party would completely annihilate them. They didn't dare to take such a risk. The group of gods immediately flew towards the South Pole with an unpleasant expression. Their hearts were filled with anger. Oh, the North Pole divine tomb has already entered. Wang Xian, who was at the South Pole, had a clear understanding of what had happened at the North Pole divine tomb. When he learned that they had entered, Wang Xian revealed a smile on his face. As long as they entered the divine tomb, Xie and the rest should be able to obtain some decent rewards with their abilities. What's the matter? Hasn't anyone tried entering yet? At this moment, a voice sounded from the front. Wang Xian swept his gaze over and the corner of his mouth curled up slightly. A true dragon son of heaven looked around and spoke to all the gods faintly. This was because the South Pole's divine tomb was the first to be born. The number of gods who came here was far more than the North Pole's divine tomb. At this moment, hundreds of thousands of people had gathered around and were looking at the divine tomb in front of them. This true dragon son of heaven, you can go and try. A god from the sacred hall looked at him and said with a smile. Hee, there's a light attributed god lord inside. You should be the first to enter. The true dragon son of heaven looked at the gods from the sacred hall and said indifferently. Boom. Just as he finished speaking, he waved his arm and a huge dragon claw grabbed towards the people behind him. Not good. Oh no, what is the Son of Heaven doing? The expressions of those below the divine realm changed drastically when they saw this. Especially those hundreds of people who were covered by the dragon claw, they ran away in shocks. However, with their strength, how could they avoid the Son of Heaven's dragon claw? Let me go, let me go. Woo, Lord Son of Heaven, let me go. The hundreds of people who were caught were filled with despair as they cried out for help. Hee, go scout the way. The Son of Heaven smiled faintly as he threw them up the stairs. Go in, whoever dares to retreat will die. A cold voice sounded from the Son of Heaven's mouth and entered everyone's ears. Peng peng peng. Hundreds of people fell at the entrance, and when they heard his words, their faces were filled with fear. No, I'm not going in, I'm not going in. A youth shouted out in fear. Peng. However, just as he finished speaking, his body exploded. TSK, since you want to obtain an opportunity, you have to be prepared to die. What? You want us to scout for you ants? The true dragon son of heaven coldly said. His ruthless voice caused the expressions of the hundreds of thousands of people behind him to change. However, when the surrounding gods saw this scene, their expressions didn't change at all. Instead, they quietly watched. Just as the true dragon son of heaven had said, if one wanted to obtain an opportunity, one had to pay a price, even the price of their lives. As for letting them scout? How was that possible? The other few hundred people saw the youth whose body had exploded, and despair appeared on their faces. Their bodies trembled violently as they walked forward. Peng, peng, peng. Just as they stepped onto the first step, a ray of light flashed, and their bodies instantly disappeared. They had been completely purified. Hiss. Seeing this scene, everyone sucked in a deep breath of cold air. Even the gods' eyes shone with a strange light. This is a complete suicide mission. The gods won't let us continue to explore, right? The hundreds of thousands of people behind were panicking as they spoke in fear. Wang Xian and the rest frowned slightly. This divine tomb in front of them was much more dangerous than the one in the North Pole. I can't see any clues at all. Perhaps only the gods will be able to discover some clues when they go over. The true dragon son of heaven frowned slightly and looked around. There were more than 30 gods in the area. There were 10 in the Lingxiao treasured palace, about 10 in the sacred hall, 2 in the true dragon son of heaven, 5 in the dragon king's faction, and some other gods. Hearing the words of the true dragon son of heaven, the eyes of the gods in the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall flickered and looked at each other. They slowly scanned their surroundings. Some of the gods who were alone saw this scene and knew that it wasn't good. Their faces were filled with wariness. Boom! At this moment, a ring of fire appeared in the sky. The 8 gods and tens of thousands of subordinates of the fire god palace slowly appeared. Swixinhuo, Suiyan, didn't you go to the North Pole's divine tomb? Why are you here? An elder from the Holy Church asked them plainly. Let's take a look over here. When Swixinhuo, Suiyan, and the other gods in the throne of the god of fire heard the elder's words, their expressions turned sour. It's that scoundrel, sister. It's that scoundrel. When the gods in the throne of the god of fire appeared, Huar and Kair saw Swixinhuo in the middle. Their expressions changed slightly as they spoke angrily. What's wrong, girl? Wang Xian was slightly stunned as he looked at the 2 girls. Daddy, it's that scoundrel. When we lit the divine fire, they wanted to recruit us. My sister and I didn't agree. In the end, they wanted to snatch our divine kingdom and even wanted to kill us. Huar said angrily. Is that so? Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the group of people in the palace of the god of fire in the sky. Huh. In the sky, as a god, he could sense the gazes of everyone around him. When Cixinhuo sensed Huar's gaze, he immediately turned his head to look. When he saw Huar and Kair's faces, he was slightly stunned. A terrifying murderous intent shot out from his eyes instantly. Just now, you seem to be saying that you want the godly state experts to scout ahead. Sui Xinhua's eyes were filled with awe. His gaze swept across the surrounding gods before finally locking onto Huar and Kair. When everyone heard his words, they were slightly stunned. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Invincible Divine Dragon's Cultivation System. Chapter 1956. 1956. Go and scout the way, or you will die. In front of the main tomb of the South Pole god, everyone looked at the group of people in the Fire God Palace in surprise. He wanted a godly state expert to scout the way in front. What did he mean by that? Seeing the murderous look in Cixinhuo's eyes, everyone looked at the place he was looking at. When they realized that it was the direction of the Dragon King and the rest, everyone was stunned again. When Wang Xian saw Sui Xinhua looking over, a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that the experts from the palace of the god of fire had injured his two little girls. If he knew, he would have left them here when they were at the North Pole just now. Perhaps only the gods can probe them. When the son of heaven of the true dragon saw Sui Xinhua's gaze, the corner of his mouth curled up slightly as he said directly. Sui Xinhua, what's going on? Suiyan and the others looked at Sui Xinhua, who was filled with killing intent, and asked with furrowed brows. Senior martial brother, Huozhi and Lu Yen were killed by those two girls. Sui Xinhua said to the experts of the Fire God Palace with a gloomy expression. Last time, two of his best subordinates were killed by a sneak attack and didn't even have the chance to revive, causing him to burn with anger. Unfortunately, he hadn't been able to keep those two girls last time. He hadn't expected to meet them here today. It's them? The other gods in the Fire God Palace instantly revealed cold expressions. They all stared at Huakair. A killing intent gathered on their bodies. Just now, at the North Pole, they had almost been killed by that expert. Their hearts were already burning with anger, and they felt incomparably sullen. Now that they had met the two people who had killed the god of Fire Palace, they naturally found a place to vent their anger. HMH, it's you who are courting death. Do you want to recruit us? You even want to steal our things. You bunch of scoundrels deserve to die. Huar heard their words and similarly shouted at them with an icy expression. You two little girls who are courting death. I want to see where you want to run to now. Sui Xinhua's body shook, and flames instantly rose. In the sky above him, a cloud of fire condensed. His gaze was fixed on Huakair, and it was filled with a sinister expression. Boom, boom, boom. In the surroundings, the gods of the Fire God Palace immediately flew around and surrounded Huakair and the others. I'll give you a chance to live. Step on the stairs to the entrance. Otherwise, you will die. Suiyan looked at the entrance of the divine tomb and growled in a low voice filled with killing intent. The throne room of the god of fire, I think all of you are courting death. Wang Xian swept his gaze across all of them. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he spoke with a solemn face. This? Everyone around was astonished when they saw this scene. Even the gods were stunned. No one had expected this to happen. Huh, are we courting death? If you dare to kill the god of the Fire God Palace, you will have to pay a heavy price. If these two little girls don't step onto the stairs today, I will let them enjoy the pain of being burned by flames. What? You, a mere dragon king, want to make an enemy out of the Fire God Palace? Don't think that just because your Dragon King has some strength, you dare to be arrogant in front of the throne of the Fire God Palace. Don't provoke us. Sui Xinhua stared at Wang Xian and said coldly. So what if we provoke them? Wang Xian's eyes sparkled and he looked slightly embarrassed. Beside him, the members of the Dragon Palace had murderous intent in their eyes. They were ready to fight at any time. Father, we are not their match. Kair frowned when she saw this scene. She pulled his arm and said to Wang Xian worriedly, Father? Those two girls are the daughters of the Dragon King. The throne of the Fire God Palace is not going to fight with the Dragon King, right? It seems that when the Dragon King killed the Yamen God, it was because of his daughters. I didn't expect that his two daughters had ignited the divine fire. They shouldn't be his biological daughters. Those two girls are obviously gods who have been resurrected. However, the Dragon King and the others have the strength of 5 gods. If they fight, the Lingxiao treasured palace will pay attention to them. The Dragon King's strength is not bad, but he might be weaker than the Lingxiao treasured palace, the sacred hall, the throne room of the Fire God Palace, the True Dragon Association, and the Son of Heaven of the Devil Dragon. Everyone looked shocked when they saw the conflict between the throne of the Fire God Palace and the Dragon King, as well as some grudges. Ever since the Dragon King displayed his terrifying strength last time, it instantly shook the entire earth. Soon after, the sacred True Dragon Association was established, and the demonic dragon Son of Heaven destroyed the pyramid forces. As a result, the forces of the Lingxiao treasured palace, the sacred hall, the throne of the Fire God Palace, the sacred True Dragon Association, the demonic dragon Son of Heaven, and the Dragon King became the most powerful existences on earth. Some people ranked these forces, and the weakest force was probably the Dragon King's force. The 5 gods on the Dragon King's side were still a bit inferior to the Fire God Palace's Luan. However, they shouldn't be able to fight. After all, the 5 gods on the Dragon King's side, even if the Fire God Palace's Luan can destroy them, there's still a chance that some of the gods on his side will perish together. Seeing the conflict between the Dragon King and the throne of the Fire God Palace, some people were slightly worried for the Dragon King and the rest as they spoke in a low voice. Some people nodded in agreement. After all, the divine tomb was right in front of them. Weakening the strength of the throne of the Fire God Palace would not be beneficial to it. TSK, I've always heard that the Dragon King is extremely arrogant. If that's the case, do you really think that 5 gods are enough to fight against the throne of the Fire God Palace? Upon hearing Wang Xian's words, Suixin, Huohua, and Suiyin narrowed their eyes slightly. There was a hint of madness in their eyes. If you really want to fight, it won't do you any good either. Hua Er swept her gaze across the 8 godly state experts. She frowned and snorted coldly at them. The throne of the Fire God Palace has descended from a distant star field. Why would we be afraid of you? The majesty of the throne of the Fire God Palace is not something a puny Dragon King can provoke. Now, I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. You 2 little girls go and scout the way. Otherwise, you will die. If you Dragon King dare to stop us, then we will die together. Sui Xinhua roared with a furious face. Not long ago, the throne of the Fire God Palace was almost destroyed by that mysterious person, which made them come here in a sorry state. How could they, who were already filled with anger, fear a Dragon King? The might of the throne of the Fire God Palace could not be violated. Good, everyone who supports the Lingxiao treasured palace. Sometimes our major forces should show their proper dignity and let some ants know the consequences of provoking us. As soon as Suixinhuo finished speaking, several gods beside him and the gods of the sacred hall said with smiles on their faces. They were happy to see this scene. They were happy to see the gods step up the stairs to test the waters. The gods of the Fire God Palace are so powerful. Now the Dragon King and the others are in trouble. Judging from the attitude of the Fire God Palace, if the Dragon King were to protect the 2 girls, he would probably be attacked by the 8 gods of the Fire God Palace. Chapter 1957. 1957, on the dusk of the Fire God Palace. Behind them, hundreds of thousands of people looked at the powerful gods of the Fire God Palace and were amazed. This was the power of the Fire God Palace and the majesty of the Fire God Palace. They looked at the Dragon King and the others sympathetically. The Dragon King was already very powerful to be able to reach this stage, but there was still a slight gap between him and the top forces that had descended. After all, the Dragon King's faction is still a little weak. Although there are 5 gods, their overall strength is a little weaker than the true dragon gathering. Everyone thought to themselves as they looked at the Dragon King with flickering eyes. They were waiting for the Dragon King's decision. The atmosphere instantly became solemn. Hee, looks like that Xiao Ran's master is going to be unlucky today. At the Ling Xiao treasured palace, Jin Feng's face was full of smiles as he watched this scene. The middle-aged god beside him also smiled faintly. Dad, we are preparing to escape. Huar and Kaya revealed a hint of anxiety on their faces as they transmitted their voices to Wang Xian. I should have killed you guys just now. But it's not too late now. Wang Xian stroked the heads of the 2 girls and uttered a sentence that made everyone around him feel baffled. A hint of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. Kill. As soon as Wang Xian finished his sentence, a piercing sound came from the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Following that, the sound of an arrow attack instantly resonated in front of the tomb of the gods. What? The sudden explosion shocked everyone. Roar. You want to kill our little princess? Why don't you see if we agree to it? We just arrived here, and now we can have a big fight. It's so cool. Ao Xingmu locked them up. Leave no one alive. Just as everyone was in a daze, wild and untamed voices suddenly sounded. Everyone was slightly shocked and looked at the people beside the Dragon King in shock. Even the gods of the Ling Xiao treasured palace and the sacred hall were shocked. Bang! In the sky, the corpse of a god of Fire Palace fell to the ground. Everyone saw a flash of light, followed by the death of a god with 2 wisps of divine fire. This. With a series of violent roars, Ao Chitian stared at the 2 top-tier experts of the Fire God Palace in the middle of the sky. A blood-red airwave rushed toward them. 1,000-meter-long ocean-pacifying divine needle smashed toward them. It was extremely violent. The terrifying arrow slashed through the air and attacked the surrounding gods. Crackle! Clang! The violent thunder and lightning suddenly resounded in the sky. Countless thunderbolts began to cover the entire sky. A cold sword light pierced into everyone's ears. A golden radiance flashed and attacked a god of the Fire God Palace. Flames lit up the sky and another beast roar was heard. Ao Fenghuang transformed into a 1,000-meter large body. He spread his wings and emitted a terrifying pressure. The 8-limbed devil Sha let out a strange cry. His body was shrouded in darkness. A deathly stillness came from their bodies and locked onto the 2 gods in a teasing manner. At this moment, other than Ao Tuxing who was standing beside Wang Xian, the rest of the members of the Dragon Palace had all moved. There were a total of 9 godly state experts. All of them had ignited a wisp of divine fires. Among them, Ao Chitian and Ao Xingmu, who were the strongest, had the ability to fight 3 levels above them. Ao Yao also had the ability to easily assassinate 3 wisps of divine fire gods. As for the other members of the Dragon Palace, they were all able to fight 1 level above them. When Ao Chitian, Ao Xingmu, and the other 9 attacked, all the gods in the Fire God Palace in the sky were completely stunned. Especially the 2 of them, Suixin, Flame, and Swain. When they saw a god being assassinated in an instant and Ao Chitian and Ao Xingmu attacking with terrifying auras, their faces were filled with shock. How was this possible? Didn't the Dragon King's forces only have 5 gods? Was the strongest only comparable to 2 wisps of divine fire? Now, that berserk devil monkey and Trent-like creature were emitting auras that even they were extremely afraid of. There was also that incomparably terrifying creature hiding in the void. Just what kind of existence had they provoked? Ah! At this moment, a miserable cry sounded. The god of divine fire in the fire god palace was looking at his body with fear. In front of them, Ba Qi was standing in front of him with a ghastly and terrifying face. He looked at the god who was gradually turning into blood and let out a loud cry. No, no, no! The god of divine fire cried out with fear on his face. He could only watch as his body was rapidly melting. At this moment, he was incomparably terrified. Just what kind of existence had they provoked? Once he was completely turned into blood, he wouldn't even have the possibility of being revived. Kiki dai dai. The eight-headed god cried out strangely as he looked at the god with a ghastly gaze. Not good, senior brother, save us. At this moment, a terrified cry for help sounded from beside him. Everyone looked over at the same time. Another god with a wisp of divine fire was on the verge of death. In front of him was Emo Sha, who was at the same level as Old Yabi. The 8 points and Emo Sha's poison were extremely terrifying. Even the other members of the Dragon Palace who were at the same level were extremely fearful. Seeing this scene, everyone around was shocked. Even the gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace's sacred hall narrowed their eyes slightly. All of his strength is comparable to lighting 2 wisps of divine fire. Some of them are even more terrifying. 9 experts with at least 2 wisps of divine fire. And this is the Dragon King, his 2 daughters, and the one holding a shield beside him. There are still 4 god-level experts who haven't made a move. Oh my god! Gulp, what kind of existence is the Dragon King? He actually has 10 god-level subordinates, and all of them are so terrifying. Is his strength comparable to the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall? Even the sacred true dragon union will have to kneel before this power. A series of shocking voices sounded. In the sky in front of the majestic divine tomb, the 9 subordinates of the Dragon King completely suppressed the Fire God Palace's throne. In less than a minute, 2 Fire God Palace's throne gods were killed, and a few of them were on the verge of death. The battle only broke out in a split second. Damn it, how could this be? Both Suixinhuo and Suan were filled with fear. They glanced around with gloomy faces. Roar, those who offend our dragon palace will die. Ao Qitian roared and threw the ocean-pacifying needle at Suiyin. Don't even think about saving them. Just watch them die one by one. In the end, it will be your turn. Ao Xingmu waved the branches under him. Each branch was like a divine tree, filled with barbs. It was extremely terrifying. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.